things they want to achieve. One of them is that they want to scrap the levy. They want to scrap the betting tax, the tax on winning. They want to scrap emission taxes. They want to scrap COVID tax. These are things that we expect them to do. I mean, so we will hold them.
Do you expect them to do them in this 2025 budget, or it can be gradual?
For me, they didn't tell us in the manifesto how they were going to go about it. But our expectation is that this is the first budget they are writing. So if you bring in this budget to Parliament, the assumption is that you should be ready to present something that will suit the pain of Ghanaians, will give them some comfort. That's what we are expecting. And in the area of trade, we are expecting that they also focus so much on private business development. Note that I have always said time and time again that the 24-hour economy can only thrive, the back of industrialization. For that matter, private people venture into industrialization. So they have to give us hope. What incentives will be available for private people who want to venture into business, especially in the area of agribusiness and value addition? These are things that we expect them to do. And also, I want also to hear something about what they want to do so that Ghanaians will patronize locally made vehicles, assembled vehicles. This is the first time Ghana has gone into mass production of vehicles. Note that we import 100,000 vehicles a year into this country. Out of this, about 70% or 75% of these vehicles are over 8 vehicles. So there's the need for us to encourage local manufacturers, and that's how government should be the number one off-taker of these arrangements. So my expectation is that government should give out good plan how government will be able to patronize locally made vehicles so that they'll be able to make money.
Your side has been critical of the government, especially about how the picture they paint about the Ghanaian economy. You say that the economy they inherited, is better than they are saying.
I believe that you're a journalist. You know about that. The facts they were giving out was not right. The data was not right at all. Ghana Statistical Service yesterday gave an indication that the economy is now valued at 1.2 trillion, which is very phenomenal. Economy that we inherited in 2016 or 17 at 219 billion. Now it's gone. So we mean that we've done almost a little over 500%, which is huge. This economy cannot be a bad economy. This growth cannot showcase an economy that's nice to you. This growth cannot showcase an economy that is a crime scene. So these are things that we don't expect them to say. Economy that's be able to save money for you to pay workers for 3 months. 3 months we are paying workers. Our Ghanaian civil servants are being paid. Government is undertaking all its statutory payments. These monies were saved by the previous government. So government should be able to paint a good picture of our country. This country is not a dead country. It's a country that is doing well, and a country that has a very prospective, bright future. So we should not paint a bad picture about this noble economy again.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ochebefi. Was a Deputy Minister of Finance, Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry in the erstwhile MPP government. Quickly, we'll speak to Honorable Sami Ewuku, the former boss of the NLA. Good morning to you, sir. You are live on GTV.
Yeah,
what will be your expectations? You expect that the government should scrap all the taxes they describe as nuisance, all of them?
Well, that is only fair that principles are principles, and governments and politicians are also held accountable to the very promises that they make. So the promises that they made on the campaign trail, God being so good, they have an opportunity to present the first budget to the August House of Parliament. And I'm looking forward that the various nuisance taxes that they listed, they'll be able to take it off as well.
Apart from that, what other expectations?
Well, taking it off and also telling us how you are going to fill the vacuum. Because definitely it has to be a situation where the nation benefits at the end of the day. There has to be an alternative in covering up for these taxes that you're also taking off, without passing the buck to further impose more taxes on the people. If you are taking off the e-levy, taking off the betting tax, taking off the lottery, the tax on lottery winnings, how are you also going to help fill the revenue gap that has been created for the betterment of our nation?
But you support the removal of the bet?
Absolutely, and I've been consistent on that matter. And in fact, it was Dr. Baumien's position as well when he was also campaigning that he was also definitely going to take away those taxes. But the NPP had an alternative. So I want to hear the alternative the NDC is also bringing on board.
Thank you very much. Samia Uku is a former boss of the NLA. Let's speak to Honorable Doyo Gansa. Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning.
And happy International Women's Day once again.
Same to you and every woman and every man who is performing the duty of a woman.
All right. So, what kind of budget do you foresee your finance minister presenting? The people of Ada are listening. They want an improvement in their lives.
The budget is going to be because Ghanaians don't want too much talking. We don't want to hear inflation this, inflation that. All we want is we should have peace and we should have things reduced so that we can buy. All they want is to stabilize the economy. All they want is to put food on their table. So we need a budget that will put food on our table. We don't want to hear, and the inflation is this, inflation that, and that. We don't want to hear their big English. We want to see changes in our lives.
That is your finance minister presenting the budget.
Yes, we promise to reset Ghana, and the reset is going to start from today because a lot of levies will go off, and we know that will reduce the living cost a bit. They should stabilize the city. That's all we want. So it should be no long talk. Me, I don't believe in long talk. Action. The action to start from today. That's all we are looking for.
Right. So you are an advocate for women, young girls. Should you also see the scrapping of tax on sanitary pads?
I have not heard anything about that yet already, but as women, we are working on it, and the vice president is even working on it with hand in hand with us. So we will see some improvements. Even not scrubbing at all, there will be some improvement or some changes that will better the lives of our young girls.
Thank you very much. Honorable Doyo Gansa is the second Deputy Chief Whip, Majority Chief Whip here in Parliament. So we see more of the MPs from both sides making their way into the House. Any moment from now, we get indication that the finance minister will be presenting the budget. As I said, the expectations are varied. Ghanaians will be glued to their TV sets to see exactly what the finance minister will be saying, especially because the cost of living in the country is high. So at this point, we'll hand over to you in the studio whilst we wait for the finance minister to do the presentation. Over to you.
Morris for that update. Morris has been reporting from Parliament, and as you saw, he's been speaking to some members of the Parliament already in the House. It seems that in a very short while, the budget presentation will start. He spoke to the current Deputy Finance Minister designate, Mr. Thomas Ampemnyako, and he's been saying that they are going to focus on cutting waste in the system and also doing targeted spending. And so we'll come to the studio and speak to my panelists, resource persons, on what exactly they expect from this statement of cutting waste and doing some targeted spending. Mr. Brown, he's talked about cutting waste. Which areas? We've already spoken a bit about the waste in the system. Which particular areas do you think that he can cut, the government can cut waste in order to deal with the revenue shortfall from scrapping some of these taxes?
Yeah, so I mean, expenditure management is very key, and I think we all agree that we've not done very well when it comes to managing expenditure. What we've identified from the little research that we've done is that there's a lot of work to be done about the budgeting process, right, and getting actors within the chain to commit to budget allocations instead of exceeding budget allocations and not having any repercussions. So in terms of the budgeting process itself, what is coming out is that the allocation should be linked to, specific measurable outcomes, not, vague activities or cost-driving activities, but what are the outcomes that those activities should lead to, and if they can be measured in terms of the value addition, then you are talking about value for money that money is, spent. And so, in terms of the budgeting process, we want to see some reforms there, including, inculcating these ideas into the budgeting process, as well as getting the actors along the various, segments to commit to these budget allocations. We also expect something on strengthening Parliament's oversight on the budgeting process, scrutinizing a bit more what goes into the budget for the various SOEs. Now, you look at the SOEs, they've been loss-making. Quite a good number of them have been loss-making over the last few years, and that contributes to that's us funding the losses of these SOEs. They are not bringing anything, and yes, they end up with losses that we have to fund. It's time for us to look at reforms in the management of the SOEs, bring in people that are professional, not necessarily, politically exposed or linked. Even if they are, they must have the qualification and experience to be able to manage these SOEs, and bring in good corporate governance, transparent financial reporting, regular as well, so that we can see when they are going off track and implement measures to resolve the issues that they may have. We've seen the president, show some commitment by reducing the number of ministers. We just want to hope that this is not just on paper, because you could move away from 90 ministers to 60 ministers, and at the end of the day, the expenditure may even increase because of the activities that the 60 ministers are getting involved in. So beyond just reducing on paper the number of ministers, we have to look at the particular cost-driving activities that they get involved in. We've heard things like no more first class, ministers must drive business class. That's, bolster maybe beyond the minister level to maybe deputy minister should do economy, that kind of thing, to ensure that we are managing the activities that are driving cost. Okay. We've also heard that, yes, the ministers have been reduced in number, but it looks like there is padding at the presidency. We don't know how true that is. But there are people at the presidency who are ministers of state that may enjoy the same benefits as ministers. So then you are just, reversing all the gains that you are making in terms of the benefits, or the gains that you are making from reducing the ministers. As we encourage the government to prioritize, cutting expenditure, we also have to advise that they proceed cautiously and are very strategic in doing that. You don't want to be overly aggressive in cutting expenditure and then end up cutting growth, because government spends for a reason. And so the priority should be on, spending on projects or in sectors that will propel growth, as the minister has promised they will do. And hopefully we get to see that in the budget, because if you just get overly excited with cutting expenditure, you may end up cutting the very activities or investments that will propel growth and end up constricting growth, which is not something we want. So these are a few considerations when it comes to expenditure management that we want to see.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to Courage. He's been on Zoom for quite some time. We've not spoken to him so much because we lost him at some point. Hello, Courage. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much for staying on. The Deputy Finance Minister has spoken about the fact that in this budget, you are going to see some cutting of waste, which they feel is in the system, and also targeted spending, which is a strategy they are going to use. Mr. Brown has spoken about funding for SOEs, which he thinks that needs to be looked at when it comes to cutting down waste, oversight for Parliament to ensure that when the budget is drawn, allocations are really used for what they are supposed to be used for. Also cutting down ministerial appointments and appointments to the presidency, which he feels that it's a good start for the president to have cut down a number of ministers and all. But from your point of view, what do you think government should look at when it comes to cutting down waste and then also targeting what they intend to spend during the year?
Well, thank you. A very good point made there, and let me take you back to the SOEs issue again. So look at ECG, for instance. We told there is a combination of technical and commercial losses to the tune of some 36 or so %, right? And what that means is that instead of collecting about 2 billion cedis every year, every month, which is what is required to pay the energy sector value chain, they do 1.5. That 500 million accumulating over time is the debt you and I would have to pay. And it has been the case. It is part of the reason they've accumulated so much debt, and the energy sector is in such a mess that it is in. And what it poses to government, at least when you're looking at it on a general government level, and you're looking at a public financial management and the requirements there, it means that your debt is really not just what you borrow, but it is the liabilities that come from the rest of the SOE sector that are on your books. These people in times past and even now borrow, government goes to borrow maybe from Eurobond, from the local market, on lend to these institutions. They use it to do the things they have to do, but then they never pay back or are unable to pay back. Some of them haven't posted profits in a long time. And I had someone talk about they being on fat salaries and their bonuses and everything they earn are intact, but then the institutions they run are not making profit. The point I'm driving at is that we need to drive efficiency in spending and efficiency across all the sectors, including SOEs and all that. When I say efficiency, what does it mean? There should be a justification for every city spent on anything. That is the only way we can realize value. Look at it this way, and I'm just using this as an example. I'll come back to the same point. How many projects have we started in Ghana, pumped so much CDs into them? And you can talk of the Commander Sugar Factory. Some, if I recall right, is there 40 or 400 million borrowed from Indian government? We invested into a sugar factory that is supposed to reduce sugar import and create job for the communities around. That money, for as long as the NDC has been in government and now MPP for 8 years and all that, has been stuck there, no value generated out of it, and we are paying interest on the money. Even if there is a moratorium on it, moratorium would always fall due and then we'll have to start paying at some point. How is that efficient? And how are we talking of cutting costs if that is how we spend? So I'm trying to say, if the research agenda is to go on and we are talking of rationalizing expenditure, cutting costs, and making sure we improve efficiency, the things we should be doing is that we should be having justification for every cedi we spend in every sector. We should do the mathematics, the calculations to see which sectors have the highest multiplier effect. When I put a cedi, say, in agriculture and I put it in maybe rice growing, what will be the multiplier effect in terms of job creation, in terms of ability to repay that money, in terms of the value chain and the benefits it gives us, in terms of how it saves us effects and all that? Those analysis need to be robust. Otherwise, we'll be throwing money up, and we are very good at throwing money at problems. So the president went to a site where there is some, I think he was in the Volta region not long ago. What was the name of that thing? I mean, the sea wave thing. And then the instruction is that make allocation for constructing, and it's a good thing to do. But have we considered what the best approach is, or is a reactionary one? And is that the best solution to the problem? That's my issue with expenditure in Ghana. We've had a gas explosion at that topic. Vice President went there and then on the spot announced a gas recirculation model, which has taken several years to implement, and we are still at the formation. drive through every aspect of our public spending. That is a sure way we can cut expenses. Because if you look at the budget as it is, you look at the NPP's last budget, you look at the indicative 2025 budget, you realize that rigidity is the biggest issue. Rigidity, you add up the non-discretionary expenditure items and you are taking almost 80% of your tax revenue that you are generating. If you add goods and services and a few others, you are gone. So you would almost always have to borrow to fund capex, right? But where are the areas we can cut? It is through efficiency, because you cannot just arbitrarily say, let me cut wages. It's a no-go area, but you can drive productivity of labor who you are paying with those wages, so that when you drive it, they generate enough to pay themselves, and there are residues for the state. There has to be every state's MD, SOE MD or board have to have their performance tied to remuneration, tied to their performance, so that in a year, and that is what happens in corporate. If they don't make profits, you don't get bonus and all that. Those things are tied. So people are motivated to bring the best value, and a percentage of that value they create becomes their reward for the year. If we do not go that route and we go the freebie way, as public sector has been run all this while, I'm sorry, we'll come back to this whole conversation of expenditure rationalization, efficiency, and issues thereabout.
On this issue of state-owned enterprises, is it not the case that government has been unable to make sure that those who work in these sectors do what they're expected to do to generate even profit because government itself, although makes allocations for these state agencies, has oftentimes failed to provide those allocations as stated in the budget. And so they can't really do nothing about what happens in these state agencies because they themselves have failed to provide these resources they need to work.
Well, but you see, there is no justification for ECG. There are different categories of state agencies. There are those on subvention, and there are those who, properly so-called, should be commercial entities. DVLA until recently was a subvented state agency. You don't know why it is so. But DVLA does a lot of good work and gets money from the populace through the services they render and we pay for. Such institutions should be turning out profits and paying dividend to government. Go to ECG. There should be no reason why ECG should be a loss-making entity. I don't know why we should be at this point driving towards full cost recovery, and we should be ensuring efficiency in their system so that value can be created. So we pay so much, but we are told it doesn't cover the cost of power generation. And if you look across the sub-region and many other serious economies, the cost of electricity is much higher in our place than a number of other places, really. It is even part of the reason why tradability of our electricity is some way. And so the portions we send to maybe your Togo, your Cote d'Ivoire, are the ones from hydro whose cost is probably slightly lesser. And we, the populace, tend to maybe face the cost of the higher ones produced through the thermal plant and all that, right? There is a fundamental problem in some of the institutions that ordinarily should be doing well. Talk of graphic, daily graphic, and those are all, to some extent, state-owned agencies and all that, but they are profitable because they are running commercially and the systems are in place. And I think government also need to wash their hands off some of the things they do with some of these agencies. So if you are buying electricity for your offices and all that, you are not paying for it, and the systems are not being maintained and all that, it's a circus. It will go back and come back to haunt us, really. So everybody needs to pay their fair share of what it is. The state should win its hands off this institution, allow them to operate optimally, and these institutions also should take on that responsibility of generating value. And their performance rewards should be tied to their performance. That is what every corporate entity does. And so until we get to those levels where we are properly rewarding efforts and quality value created, and not just being in an office or in a position and all that, until we get to that level, we wouldn't solve this expenditure problem, because it's a huge elephant in the room that need to be dealt with. And the solution could be technological and how we even collect revenues in some state agencies. It could be performance contracts. It could be new investment to drive efficiency in certain sectors. Cocoa Board, the way it has run over the time, I think Cocoa Board is going beyond its mandate of purchasing and selling Ghana cocoa to the quasi-fiscal duties it's running, road construction, the different other interventions that meant they are always in the red. That needs to be dealt with. Cocoa Board should function as a support system, an institution that regulates the cocoa sector, provides support for farmers, and should be focused on driving productivity in cocoa and cocoa only. And then the dividends they will pay to government through the operations and all that can be channeled into a few other things, really. And then you can name a number of other state agencies that need to run the same model. And it is that way that we can reduce the general government debt and then ensure that there is efficiency in spending, and every cedi we spend, I believe, would generate value for the economy. But the way we run it now, if we go business as usual, I'm not sure anything will change. And that is what I'm expecting the reset agenda under this new government will be championing.
All right, Courage, let's take a look at the issue of ghost names. What do we do with regards to technology to be able to address these challenges that we're facing from year to year?
It should actually not be a major challenge in Ghana now, a nation that has touted its digitalization drive all this while, right? Every company, I mean, GBC, I believe, knows everyone that works at that institution. everyone reports to a boss. And so whether your direct report is coming to work or not coming to work, you should know. It is the human interventions in the system. It is the inefficiencies in the system. It is the deliberate, willful intentions to probably manipulate the system that results in these ghost names, not only a national service, as we are being told, but a number of other state institutions. So you've seen, I think sometimes back, some institution asking that very frequently you go do validation and all that. But really, a simple clocking, whether you come to work or not. You have security systems at the entrance to clock whether you come to work, what time you came, what time you leave. It's even useful for performance management, right? You don't need to force people, even when they are on leave, they should come in and do some validation, blah, 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 and all the things we see. Simple technology, a clocking system at the entrance. When people come to office, you will know their data is in the system. So if the person is not a staff, it cannot even access the door to start with. And if someone is to come to work, and the rules are there. In my organization, if you do not come to work for 10 continuous days, you are booked to have vacated your seat, and this very measure will take place. What is it in the state institutions, really? What are the supervisors doing? So the people who are supposed to be working, who their supervisors do not know, but validate them to receive pay every day, who is allowing that to happen? So it is the human element, it's the human intervention in the system. And if the will is there to wipe it off, it's the clip of the finger. It should be done, really. And there are solutions around to do this. So in a technological age in the Ghana that we have touted at technological and if you like, digital advancements and all that, if these things exist, it's because people want them to exist. It's not because some rocket science that cannot be cracked.
Well, thank you so much, Courage. We'll be coming back to you for some more. Now, Mr. Brown, you're saying something about the audit agency and the fact that they've been under-resourced, who have been taking care of some of the issues that Courage has been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, so that's also one of the issues that have come up. How under-resourced the internal audit agency have been all this while. So they are basically not performing their functions. I do not know exactly the chain, but I imagine
Members, please be seated.
and the manual processes allows for this human intervention, which breeds corruption and all that. Because then somebody can sit at the National Service Secretariat and have a gentleman's agreement with whoever is handling the audit at the internal audit agency.
Honorable members, let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and their good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, we will take item 6. Item 6. Correction of votes and proceedings and official report. We start with the correction of votes and proceedings of Friday, 7th March 2025. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8. Yes, Honorable Member.
Speaker, with respect, none of us on the last row has a copy of the vote. No, they haven't uploaded it. It's not on it.
Honorable members, page 8. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, page 8. For consistency's sake, item 6A, Methodist Girls High School, Mamfi, from Equiapim. Equiapim here has been spelled with an E. However, if you go to page 262, the constituency, Equiapim has been spelled with an I. So I don't know whether it's the I or the E that's the correct. Yeah, just for consistency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, table office kindly cross-check the correct spelling of Akwapim. Akwapim with regard to the constituency, not the general term Akwapim, the proper spelling of the name of the constituency. Page.
Right, Honorable
Yes.
Speaker, it's a correct spelling.
Which one is the correct
with
spelling?
an E.
So
E
what about page 2 when it's an I?
The Electoral Commission designated it as an I, but for the school,
I am not interested in the Electoral Commission. I'm
Right.
interested in the correct spelling.
the correct spelling is an E.
Yes,
Mr.
so
Speaker.
why didn't you draw our attention when we're at page 2?
Mr.
When
we don't
it was
have-
spelled
Mr.
with
Speaker,
I.
Mr. we don't have a copy of it yet. All those here.
That is not a challenge to me. It's a challenge to you. If it is that the whole house have not been given copies, that I can come in. But when some individuals don't have copies, it's not a point of order for Mr. Speaker to interrupt the proceedings. Yes. Minister for Foreign Affairs.
I'm most grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, item number 5II at page 8. The communication from His Excellency the President informing the House that the Honourable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka has been assigned additional ministerial responsibility for national security. Mr. Speaker, the additional has been omitted. It should be inserted so that it doesn't create the impression that this is because he's Minister for the Interior and has been assigned responsibility for national security. The rendition here does not accurately capture that because it's not a reshuffle if it's not captured accurately. So Right Honourable Speaker, the rendition here does not convey accurately what the communication is, because he's the Minister for Interior and he has been assigned that additional responsibility for national security. So, Mr. Speaker, if the table office can capture the essence more accurately, you don't get that impression here.
Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs, what's your authority on this? Is it in the law or in the communication?
Well, Right Honourable Speaker, is from the communication, and Honourable Ministers
Have
were
you
copied.
had sight of the communication?
Yes, Right Honourable Speaker, we were copied.
Whether you were talking or you were laughing, that's not an issue. The issue is, have you had sight of the communication? You are
Yes,
sure?
Mr. Speaker.
Because the copy I read did not have any word like additional. The communication is that he's been assigned the responsibility of not additional responsibility. So, Minister, you are out of order. Yes, can we proceed? Yes, Minister for Energy and Green Transition. Oh, Energy and Green Transition.
Mr. Speaker, just a suggestion to you. Probably through you to the table office. Mr. Speaker, it's true that not all of us have had copies of the, not the order paper, the votes and proceedings. Mr. Speaker, under your able leadership, you provided us with very, very beautiful and working computers. So maybe I thought that I could appeal to you if you could direct the table office to make available next time the votes and proceedings on the computer. At least without even the paper copy, we can easily follow on the computer and make comments and suggestions as necessary. Mr. Speaker, just for your guidance and consideration. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Honourable members, the structure we are using as the Chamber of Parliament was constructed in 1964. In spite of all our attempts to modernize it, we are still having serious challenges. And so it's not easy to unload some of the applications we have. Even the electrical connections are also giving us serious problems. It means we have to replace all, including the Job 600, and that's quite a colossal sum, which our budget has not been able to take. So we have a lot to unload into your PCs, but we are having challenges. And so you see that we're doing it piecemeal. And I hope in the near future we'll succeed in putting all there so that it will be a paperless parliament. We don't want to be giving you hard copies. It's quite expensive to run such a system. So bear with us. We'll get there sooner than later. Yes, honorable members, can we go to page 9? Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Yes, honorable member. Honorable member, my mic is working. Honorable members, is it the case that your mics have stopped working? Honorable members, I will proceed to suspend sitting for a few minutes so that it could be rectified. Please, just on 5 minutes.
It's back. Mr. Speaker, it's back.
Honorable members,
It's on.
are you sure?
Mine is on. Speaker, this is on. Then everybody should come here and talk. Mr. Speaker, it appears that my microphone is working, and I'm ready to yield my space for anybody who wants to speak in the House, Mr. Speaker. I'm ready to do that, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, sitting is suspended for 5 minutes.
Oh, no, it's working.
No. The mic is not working. But it has come. It keeps trying. As at the time you want to.
Parliament. Because the microphones for the MPs are not working. And so that particular issue would have to be addressed before proceedings will continue. So as I speak to you now, Parliament is gone on a brief suspension. It's gone on a brief suspension. As and when the microphones are fixed, they will resume. But what we are hearing in the background is that the microphones are configured in such a way that only one microphone can be turned on at a particular time. And so if a microphone is on, the other MPs are unable to also turn on their microphones simultaneously. That's what we're hearing in the background. So, Pearl, the House is packed. We see members from both sides in the House. The proceedings, had started in earnest just when the MP for Afajatu South rose up to his feet and announced that his microphone was not working, and the other MPs also joined in complaining that their microphones were also not working. Even before that, there were some MPs who said that they didn't get a copy of the Hansard yesterday, the previous day's proceedings. They didn't get copies of that. Even before there was a detection that some of the microphones were not working. So, Pearl, any moment from now, when the technical issue of the microphone is dealt with, Parliament will resume. The Speaker has left the chamber. He's giving 5 minutes before the proceedings will resume. We're still here in Parliament. Quickly, we'll speak to some of the persons who are eagerly waiting to hear from the Finance Minister, Dr. Kasiala Tofor-Singh, the Executive Secretary of the Import and Export Test Association of Ghana, Honorable Samson Awingobit, is here in person, waiting to hear exactly what the Finance Minister will be saying. Let's quickly engage him whilst we wait for the House to resolve those technical challenges, and then the proceedings will continue. Good morning to you, Mr. Awingobit. You are live on GTV, and so the House is gone on a suspension because of some technical issues, but really you are very much expectant of the 2025 budget. What are your expectations as a business person?
Well, we are looking forward to see a very prosperous budget, a budget that would come to solve the needs of the ordinary citizenry. I'm very optimistic that this budget is coming to address the cost of doing business in the country, giving tax relief to the business community, and by extension, we will also intend to also reduce the prices of our goods in the market, so that the ordinary citizen who would have gone to the market and start crying, get like what happened, what transpired at the ministries when the minister of what do you call it, when the minister of finance himself went to market, and there's a lady who was complaining bitterly that she went to market to procure goods, and in less than 2 weeks she went back and the price of those goods have gone up astronomically. That is not what we want to see. That is a burden on every household as we speak now. And so we are looking forward to see that the COVID levy is gone. We are looking forward to see that the e-levy is gone. In fact, even and the rationalization of the fees and charges at the port, because that was one of the challenge areas that President Mama used and hammer in campaigning. The government agencies working are reporting that they are also like a revenue authority, which shouldn't be. They are not revenue authorities. And so and of course, President Mama made us to understand that the Ghana, we are spending over $400 million in importing frozen chicken to this country. We've spent $2 billion importing food into this country. We want to see that if a half of this $2 billion stay in this country, by government giving incentives to those who produce rice, those who produce maize, those who produce soybeans, so that they can feed our industry, can feed the poultry producers, then they can produce more. Then we will no longer send $400 million to import frozen chicken to this country. They will no longer send out $2 billion to import rice into this country. So I want to say, what are the incentivized area that they are going to give the private sector, and that will follow. So today's budget will be the first year of the 24-hour economy. We are eager to see what the Minister of Finance is bringing. And I am happy and very optimistic that the Finance Minister showed us some example that he's above what we are thinking, that he went to the market himself, he also sent his deputy out, and then they all went to have interaction with the ordinary Ghanaians in the market there. And then so the challenge is the issue that we've been raising, that if you go to the market, the cost of doing business, inflation, city depreciation, we want the stability of the city, we will see. So that whether if he has actually listened to them and then putting it to action, then this budget would address those concerns that we have been raising.
You think there's any strategy that will help stabilize the Ghana cedi in a very short term? We see how the cedi is depreciating against major trading currencies. Are we able to stabilize it in the very short term, given the circumstances we find ourselves?
Yes, the policies that he will introduce in terms of fiscal policy will bring cedi depreciation, will bring inflation down. And that's why I advised last time that the Minister of Finance and the Governor of Bank of Ghana should be working in tandem, so that at least, because if the Bank of Ghana is dealing with the monetary policy, he's dealing with the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy bring in inflation, isn't it? Then stability of the city is paramount to us. And so I can tell you, we strongly believe that there is a need for government of Ghana to actually make sure that the city depreciation is something that we are looking for, stability of the city. So if, as I said, if we are sending a hooping of $400 million to import frozen chicken, we are sending a hooping of $2 billion to, so if we have 50% of those money to stay here, there will be stability in the city, and there will also be control of the inflation rate that we'll be talking about.
Is your expectation that all those tax, the levies, e-levy, COVID, emission tax, betting tax, should be off in this particular budget, or it should be staggered?
Yes, straight away. We are expecting to see a cutoff of those taxes that can give a relief to the business community, that will give business confidence. And mind you, President Mahama have already extended his invitation, his hand, to invite investors that left the shores of the Ghana. Remember 2023, many of the investors, many of the business community left here to Ivory Coast. So this budget will be the budget that will build that confidence. This is the budget that will say, oh, this government is a new government. The new government is a business friendly. The new government really wants to do business, and the new government is prepared to receive investors coming. And so your city stability, your inflation, and then your interest rate is key. That is why we propose in the 2 days economic dialogue that the bank reserve, the commercial bank reserve, that the cash reserve that they deposit at the Bank of Ghana, what do they use it for? It's for 0%. They are not using it to trade. So the bank doesn't even get any profit. Can we, if we really mean that we are spending so much millions of dollars, bringing frozen chicken, bringing rice, can we use those money to direct, to invest, or to borrow to people who want to go into rice production, people who want to go into poultry production, people who want to go into maize and sorghum production, so that at a rate of 6% per annum, that is the way, that's the shortest way that can cushion and that can benefit the people.
All right, thank you very much. We will stay here in Parliament. We await the resumption of the House any moment from now. There's a 5-minute suspension of the House to fix the technical issues. So I'm hand over to you in the studio whilst we await the presentation of the 2025 budget. Sorry, I thought because
Wingobit, and we see that proceedings in the House have been suspended for a while because there were challenges, technical challenges with the microphones in the House, and so the Speaker directed that they suspend sitting until the microphones are worked on. So as and when they do work on the microphones, proceedings would start again, and then the Finance Minister can have his day in the House. We're back into the studio. We'll be speaking to Mr. Dennis Brown, Deloitte. He's with Deloitte Ghana. He's Associate Director, Financial Advisory. Mr. Wingobit mentioned a number of things, particularly rationalization of fees and charges at the port. We'll talk about that. But one key thing he also spoke about was the finance minister's interaction with women, market women, and also that X Spaces conversation he held with the youth. You think that was very critical at this time when he has to put out the budget, especially just few days to the budget when many know that the budget was already done?
Well, I think it's a nice gesture, right? We are yet to see whether whatever he went to the market to discuss with the market women will feature in the budget. The budget is a finite document. If you were to interview, market women all across, I'm sure, it will still boil down to just a few key issues that will feature in the budget anyway. But it's a nice gesture. It's communicating the people to whom the budget belongs and giving them hope that their concerns will be addressed in the budget. It helps in carrying them along. You then enjoy that confidence down there, and they are then ready and prepared to contribute their quota. Even going to the market alone, for instance, can prompt someone to yield to paying their taxes. Those we saw in that a video that we saw, that picture also are mainly the informal sector. Getting down there and talking to them that it's a budget designed for them alone will whip up their confidence in what
you think it may be a way to sort of court them into appreciating why they may need to maybe contribute to payment of taxes?
Exactly, their quota in various ways, not only taxes but also even in terms of their own economic activities, and how that instead of boating, for instance, that's an option, going to other places where you feel the economic environment is more friendly. You get some confidence that yes, this might work, so I would stay back to contribute my quota. So it's a nice gesture, even if their views and ideas do not end up in the budget as blunt as they would want. I'm sure there will be other key measures in the budget that will contain aspects of what they want to see that they can run along with. So that's very good.
And the interaction with the youth, I have seen the most recent Afrobarometer report, and it stated that one of the major issues that people want to hear from the finance minister is the issue about unemployment, which really directly affects the youth. More than 43% of respondents said that they really wanted to hear something from the finance minister about unemployment, which directly affects the youth. You think that he may have sort of tried to help them appreciate whatever he has for them in the budget, even when it comes to unemployment issues or creating employment for the youth?
Yeah, I mean, unemployment was very topical in the lead up to the elections. And let me say, it's been topical over the last few years. Not few years, it's been, an issue that's been hanging around. Every government comes around and tries to do what they can, right? But we've seen this new government comes on the wings of the unemployment issues that we face, and they made promises on how they are going to get the economy to whip up productivity, to expand the economy, and to create jobs, just create the enabling environment to create those jobs. And so it was good that he went down there to touch down with them. Maybe, I'm sure they touched on issues relating to how they are approaching this whole idea or this whole thing around creating jobs. Maybe the 24-hour economy policy may have come up, and so everybody is very expectant, particularly within the youth ranks. They're expecting to see how government is rewiring this whole idea of 24-hour economy to create jobs. And so it's good that he engages the youth, and I think that that's more so because of how emphatic the election victory was. If you look at the topical issues, I would say unemployment is number one. Our challenge has been that even though we keep growing the economy, the extent to which the economy generates jobs has not matched the extent to which the job market is growing. So you have a lot of people rushing into the job market
for very little,
for very little jobs. And so there's a lot we need to do. And like I said earlier, it starts with looking at really reconfiguring the structure of our economy. The structure as it is now is largely import dependent. Maybe about 80% of what we consume in our households are imported, which means you are creating jobs elsewhere. The final thing is what comes here, and in a simple change, buying and selling. If we manage to improve the value chains along various sectors. We talked about pharmaceuticals, talked about agribusiness, we talked about technology integration, we talked about steel manufacturing, and iron. I think there's one other sector which has escaped me a bit. If we prioritize those and develop the value chains along those sectors, we are going to be able to, create jobs along those sectors, and it will help solve the unemployment issue.
Now, for Mr. Wingobet, he's into the import and export business.
Yes.
And so one thing that for him is of interest is taxes or fees at the ports.
Yeah.
And the current administration, even during their campaigning, indicated in their 120-day social contract that they were going to do something about port levies. What do you expect to see about that? Because Mr. Wingobet mentioned that he wants to see something about tax rationalization at the port, or fees, rationalization of fees at the ports.
Yeah, I think, in fact, when you go back to the lead up to the elections, both major political parties were promising tax reforms at the port, indicating that the number of taxes alone on the imports are too many, and so there should be some type of rationalization, maybe consolidating some of them and scrapping some of them entirely. So that's
we'll hold on to that, because I'm told Parliament is back in session. I'm sure issues with the microphones have been worked on, and so the House has reconvened, and then we'll head there and then see what's happening in Parliament.
Page 8. We'll now move to page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Yes, Honorable Member.
Speaker, I'm exceedingly grateful for the opportunity. And with your leave, let me please seek your superior judgment and wisdom on item 15, Roman numeral 2, Dr. Justice Sremsai, a nominee for Deputy Ministerial Portfolio. Speaker, if you take the 13th report of the Appointment Committee, the nominee has been designated as Deputy Minister for Justice and Attorney General. But over here, the votes and proceedings have captured it as Deputy Attorney General and Deputy Minister, Ministry of Justice. I do not know if it's a needless repetition, especially with the deputy coming at the two ends. I seek your superior judgment.
Honorable Member, this is the correct designation. He is the Deputy Attorney General and also a Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Justice. That is the correct designation. May we go on now? Page 14. Yes, please.
Honorable Speaker, on page 14, item 16 motion, under conclusion of debate, the second sentence, the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker will due for the chair at 16:31 p.m. The Honorable First Deputy Speaker to the chair. Deputy is missing, if it could be inserted. And the same applies to the next sentence, so consequential amendment to that. Thank you.
Honorable Member, we are grateful. Table office, kindly take note. Page 15. Page 16. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. On page 16, Item 9, item 9I, name number 11. Honorable Professor Grace
Page
Ayensu Dankwa.
16.
Page 16.
Yes.
Name number 11. Item 9I. That's Committee of Selection.
Oh, you're talking about item 19, not 9. 19I.
19I, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
please.
I'm guided.
Yes.
The arrangement of the title, I see some inconsistency. In some, I know for the standard in our votes and proceedings, we usually have the title, the professor, coming at the end of the name and in brackets. But in this arrangement, the arrangement is different, Honorable Professor. And I see that again on page, we haven't gotten to page 22, but I have seen that repeated several times. So if there could be some consistency with the arrangement, I think that would be helpful, Mr. Speaker.
It doesn't come up.
Thank you.
Honorable member, I will take note of that. Page 17. Page 18. Yes, please.
Okay,
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Page 18. Page 18. Item 11 and 12 has been repeated. Honorable Alfred Ni Koteyashi is both at 11 and 12. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, my attention has been drawn by the chief whips to the fact that there have been some mistakes, errors in the list that was submitted and approved. I think it was on Friday. Yes. And so they are working at it and they will come back to us properly. So we await that. So if you identify some of the issues you are raising now, please kindly hold your peace. We'll get it corrected later on. Please. We'll do that later on. With regard to the composition of the committees, both standing and select committees. So page 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, up to the end of 58 will be taken later on. So please, honorable members, hold your peace until they resubmit the proper composition to the House. In the meantime, the committees by law are established. It's only the composition that we're having issues with. The referral will be to the committees. And that is what will happen after the presentation of the budget. Please, with that, we'll take page 59. Page 60. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the 29th sitting, dated Friday, 7th March 2025, is adopted as the true record of proceedings. I have a copy of the official report of Tuesday, 25th February 2025. Any corrections? Honorable members, in the absence of any correction, yes?
Mr. Speaker, some minor corrections on column 79, second paragraph, line 8. Line 8, the former president, John Ajekun Kufuor, names are very significant. The second Kufuor was spelled wrongly. It should be Kufuor, not Our. Kufuor. It's a Kufuor. Then the last paragraph, the last sentence, beginning to tend to that concept. Tend is used here, but I suspect the right word should be tend, Turn, instead of tend, Tend. Thank you.
Table office kindly take note of that. Yes, honorable member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on column 75, line 8, the sentence should read, but I want to highlight one important thing that the maker, Mr. Speaker, the article there has been excluded, and I think that it is proper we include that. Still on the same column, line 17. Mr. Speaker, it should read as, I think that apart from the law, the act that was passed by the House, we has been omitted. We should look at the projects. So, Mr. Speaker, the Hansard department the table should include we there. Mr. Speaker, column 76, paragraph 3. We have, Mr. Speaker, lastly, I would want to also suggest that apart from the budgeting offloading of projects, the mistake here is the phrase, the maker of the statement has to be deleted. The maker of the statement has to be deleted and replaced with we, so that it will then read as, Mr. Speaker, lastly, I would want to also suggest that apart from the budgetary offloading of projects, we could include in every brochure, ... So that, I think, should be the rendition. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, the same paragraph, line 12. I would be able to tell that when I call this investor, the B is excluded, and it has to be included in the sentence, be able to, and we'll replace participate with partner. We'll replace participate with partner in the same sentence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, table office, you have to listen to the voice and do the proper thing. Well, this is quite massive, and partner and participate, they are quite different and distinct. So the voice will determine which one to use. Because if you read the standing orders, it talks about it being put in as much as possible. Is a verbatim reportage of what is said on the floor. Yes, please.
I'm most grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, at column 144 of the official report, my contribution to the tribute to the Osajefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the second paragraph at column 144, the word is faith columnists, not fee. So it should be FIFTH. What we have here is FEED. So, Mr. Speaker, if that can be corrected. And then the first paragraph at column 144, Fidel Castro should not belong to that category. It should be put in a different category. So if the corrections could be effected accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, table office, kindly take note of that. Yes. Honorable members, there being no further corrections, the official report of the 25th February 2025 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Honorable members, we will now move on to the item of the day. I mean the main item of the day, that is item 7, statements. The first statement. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on our today's order paper, item 7, as you rightly call, the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Mr. Speaker, I want to invite you to our standing orders, order 195. 2. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I need guidance and I'll read it. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable, please, let's listen to the Deputy Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Minister was, Mr. Speaker, order 1952. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I need guidance and I read. The budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the Minister responsible for finance on behalf of or on the authority of the President, and in a form the House may determine. Mr. Speaker, I'm emphasizing on the last part, in a form the House may determine. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, this new standing orders on this 9th Parliament, we haven't determined any form the budget statement will be presented as at now. Mr. Speaker, I have gone to read Order 6, and I have checked on our schedule from Schedule 1 to Schedule 10, and that of Order 6, and I have not been able to understand. And as we stand, Mr. Speaker, as at now, the House has not determined the form the budget is going to be presented. So, Mr. Speaker, the House has to determine the form before he can present any statement. Mr. Speaker, that is my plea, that the House must determine, my application is that the House must determine the form of the budget statement before he reads the statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Public Financial Management Act and its various amendments spell out clearly the budgeting process, the requirements of a budget, what must be contained in it, and etc. And that was a legislation enacted by the same Parliament. And this Parliament acts according to the prescriptions of that legislation. So if there are provisions in the standing orders that recommend that we have a form in which the budget should be presented, the provisions of the Public Financial Management Act, of course, is the parent legislation dealing with financial management and the presentation of budgets. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's an issue here. Let's proceed and take the budget statement from the Minister of Finance.
Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have listened to the application by the Member of Parliament for Toulon. I have also listened to the Leader of the House responding to the said application. The Leader of the House makes a general submission. The application was anchored on the rules of this House. A mandatory provision in Order 195, there's no may there. It reads, for the avoidance of doubt and at the risk of being repetitive, this is what it says. The budget statement in economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the minister responsible for finance on behalf of and on the authority of the president and in the form the House may determine. Yes, wait, look at them. Mr. Speaker, wait, yes. So, yes, wait. Mr. Speaker, they should take it easy. They should take it easy. They should take it easy. This is law. Take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. So, Mr. Speaker, what is the reverse logic? Please, for the benefit of our young ones, for the benefits of the young ones, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this House is a house of procedure. This House is equally guided by its own rules and precedents. Wait a moment. For those who are in a hurry to shout in his agreement, if the law says may determine, is it also the case that in reverse logic, the House may decide not to determine any form? What? No, wait. The law is that a budget statement must be presented. But we are saying again that as a house, we may have to determine which form. So, Mr. Speaker, the invitation by the deputy minority whip is well founded. He is inviting us as a house to determine, are we going to allow him to make a statement, or we are going to allow him to move a motion? Is it going to be in a form of a motion or in a form of a statement? This is a well-anchored application. Don't use your number to shout to intimidate him. He has made a solid argument. This House has not determined the form in which this item has to be taken. The deputy minority whip is inviting us to set the ground rules. The majority leader got up and referred to PFM Act to say what? He didn't quote the specific provision. The man has made an application under our own rules. You didn't attack him on the rules. You didn't know. You didn't say anything against his application on the rules. Mr. Speaker, as the minister is here, in which form are we going to listen to him? Is he going to make a statement? Or he is going to move a motion? Mr. Speaker, this House is being invited to determine this matter. You see, the Supreme Court has had an occasion to give a contextual interpretation where may is placed to mean shall. Yes, it is there. No, come on, Mr. Speaker, even that argument aside, put that argument aside. There's no need for any interpretation of whether may should be shall. The point is that the law provides that we should determine the form. The law says we should determine the form. In this House, there are ways to come here. You come to make a statement. You come to move a motion. What is the minister coming to do? It's for this House to determine. Is he going to move a motion in accordance with Article 179? Or he's coming to make a statement? And when he makes the statement, what happens? Is it going to be left with a chairman of a finance committee to now move that this House should debate the statement? Mr. Speaker, this is a solid application, and he should be applauded for what he's done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would want to rule on this matter. I've heard enough. I think in terms of procedure, the right thing has been done. The order you quoted clearly states the statement of the estimates of revenue and expenditure of the government. It says what? The statement. And so what they are bringing to us is a statement. And when statements are admitted, they are presented as statements. Now, when you go to 1952, which you refer to, it says the budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the minister responsible for finance on behalf of or on the authority of the president. That's first. Second, and in a form the House may determine. Honorable Minority Leader, you are not in a shouting battle. Please, this is the House. The only way the House can determine however you define form is when the statement is presented to you. The House cannot determine this matter outside the House. You can only determine it when you are truly sitting as a House. And this is the House. He's presenting the statement. If you decide that you want a form, you define form in any different manner as you are doing, then this is the time when it is presented, you take this opportunity to determine that form you want, different from the earlier forms that we've decided and been practicing. If this is what you want to do, please, the statement must first be presented to you. It has to be presented to the House. And if you may, you determine the form you want it to be presented. That can be part of the debate. But I'm not sure the definition you are putting on the word form. Form. Please go back to your lexicons. To determine the meaning of form. I think the writing is being done. The statement was admitted. It's been properly captured on the order paper as programmed by the business committee, and the minister is here to present the statement to the House. So the minister may do so. So at honorable members, honorable minister, just a minute. Just a minute. Honorable members, at the commencement, yes.
Mr. Speaker, just to thank you for your guidance and the proper interpretation of 1952. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Galamsey for the longest time until I became a Galamsey.
Honorable members, item 7, statements. The budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, on the authority of His Excellency the President, President John Dramani Mahama, and pursuant to Article 179 of the Constitution and the other paper and the standing orders of the House, Order 1952, and today's order paper, Item 7. Mr. Speaker, I present to you the budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, today marks a moment of great significance, and I have the singular honor to stand before this House to present, on behalf of His Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, following his extraordinary mandate, the maiden budget of his new administration. Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply grateful to His Excellency the President for entrusting me with this responsibility. Respectfully, Mr. Speaker, I also submit to this House the following statutory report as required by law. The 2024 annual report on the petroleum funds, in line with Section 48 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, as amended, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also submit the 2024 Energy Sector Levies Report in accordance with Section 6 of the Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the 2024 Annual Report on the collection and utilization of the African Import Union Levy, in line with Section 7 of the African Union Import Levy Act 2017, Act 952. Right Honorable Speaker, with this budget, I will also be seeking a review of the following act to support the policies of government aimed at stabilizing the economy and promoting inclusive growth. The first will be an amendment to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815. The second will be the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund Act 870. And the second will be an amendment to the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act 2018, Act 978. The Speaker, I will also be seeking amendment to the Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899. I will be seeking amendment to the Ghana Cocoa Board Act, Act 1984, the PNDC Law 81, as amended. The Speaker, that's not all. I will also be seeking amendment to the Earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Act 2017, Act 947, the Ghana Procurement Authority Act 2003, Act 663, as amended in Act 914. Speaker, I will be seeking amendment to the Ghana Education Trust Fund Act 2000, Act 581. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I will also be seeking amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, Act 982, and incorporating into a comprehensive public financial management act. Mr. Speaker, I forgot to add that I will also be seeking amendment to the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915. So, Speaker, we remain committed to the pursuit of our 24-hour economic policy of stimulating economic growth and job creation. Right Honorable Speaker, this policy will contribute to addressing Ghana's structural economic challenge by creating an integrated, efficient, and increasingly export-driven industrial economy that fulfills the utilization of our national resources, capital, and labor power. Right Honorable Speaker, will be presenting the 24-hour economic policy to Parliament in due course. In this respect, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the Ghana Investment Promotion Act, and other enabling legislations will be reviewed accordingly. Mr. Speaker, as part of the effort to stabilize our city through foreign exchange and gold reserve accumulation, I will also submit a bill to provide a legal framework for the establishment of the Ghana Gold Board for the consideration of this House. Mr. Speaker, this budget is indeed an abridged version of the 2025 budget statement and economic policy of government. I respectfully request the Hansard Department to capture the entire budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Mr. Speaker, standing here evokes a sense of nostalgia as I reflect on my journey in public service. From my early days as a young parliamentarian in this House in the year 2009, destiny has guided my path from a backbencher to a member of the Finance Committee, to a Deputy Minister of Finance, to ranking member of the Finance Committee, to Minority Leader, to Majority Leader briefly, and now, Mr. Speaker, as Minister responsible of Finance. Right Honorable Speaker, the invaluable experience I gained in this chamber has shaped my perspective, sharpened my focus, and prepared me for the task at hand. I fully commit to supporting His Excellency the President to fix the economy of Ghana. I take this opportunity to extend my profound gratitude to the good people of Ejuma Kwenyanesiam, my constituents, and to you, Mr. Speaker, and members of this House across the aisle for your unwavering support throughout my years in this chamber. Mr. Speaker, this esteemed House is a sanctuary of rigorous debate, principled cooperation, and at times constructive disagreement, all in the pursuit of greater good of our beloved country. I look forward to working with you, Right Honorable Speaker, and my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to reset the Ghana's economy through sound policy and structural reforms that will propel our country forward. Mr. Speaker, there comes a time in a nation's history when fundamental challenges must be confronted, difficult choices must be made, and a new course must be set for the future. For Ghana, the defining moment is now. Mr. Speaker, President John Dramani Mahama made a commitment to reset Ghana for jobs, accountability, prosperity. The Speaker, as captured in the NDC manifesto, in this regard, the theme of our budget is resetting the economy for Ghana we want. Right Honorable Speaker, the democratic principles we tirelessly fought for are being held. Our democracy has been consolidated with yet another peaceful transition of power. That notwithstanding, our youth face an uncertain future with growing unemployment and hopelessness. This suggests that the dividend of democracy, such as economic prosperity and social justice, remains elusive. Mr. Speaker, the choice before us as a country are clear. We can either continue on a path of self-destruction by not confronting the problems, or we can embark on a journey of fundamental reforms and transformation, one that resets our economic model, redefines our priorities, honors our social contract, and provides opportunity for all. Mr. Speaker, luckily, President Mahama has chosen the path of reform and transformation. He will fix the economy. He will restore hope and lead us to build the Ghana we want together. Right Honorable Speaker, this budget was preceded by the National Economic Dialogue on the theme Resetting Ghana, Building the Economy We Want Together, on the 3rd and the 4th of March 2025. Through this consensus-building dialogue, the people demanded a decisive action, real solution to the severe challenges that plagued us as a country. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget is a culmination of the true aspirations, felt needs, genuine desires of the people of Ghana, expressed through the engagement with diverse stakeholders. As part of our broad consultation also, ahead of the budget, we recently engaged traders at major trading centers, including the Mokola market, to listen to their concerns, gauge their expectations, and elicit their input. So, Speaker, the extensive consultation revealed that the overriding concern among Ghanaian traders and business community remains price and exchange rate stability. Apart from eroding their working capital, exchange rate volatilities makes effective business planning impossible and increase the cost of doing business. This budget outlines far-reaching measures which will be implemented in close collaboration with the Central Bank, the Bank of Ghana, to effectively and efficiently manage the exchange rate and inflation. Mr. Speaker, we also engage the youth of Ghana in a dialogue on social media as part of our new budget consultation. Mr. Speaker, during my engagement with the youth, it was revealed that 321 pharmacists who were employed since June 2023 have not received their salaries. We will take urgent steps to remedy this situation immediately. Right Honorable Speaker, this conversation was an eye-opening experience, one that strengthened my belief that the voices of the youth matter in designing policies that directly and indirectly impact their lives and future. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2016, I came to this chamber on behalf of the then Minister of Finance, the Honorable Seth Emmanuel Tepe, and led the passage of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 912, to deploy a robust public financial management system. Even though, Mr. Speaker, the Public Financial Management Act remains one of the best in the world, its poor implementation has rendered our public financial management systems weak, allowing for abuse and costly infraction. So, Speaker, President Mohammed's government is committed to the full implementation of this critical legislation. So, Speaker, accordingly, we will enforce the sanction regime, link contracting and public procurement to budgetary provisions in the medium-term expenditure framework, and seek parliamentary approval for all multi-year commitments as required by law. Mr. Speaker, we will comply with the public procurement process and link them to approved budget. We will also respect the limits of the appropriations as approved by Parliament. We will rationalize the management of the compensation of employees, including conducting headcount across the country. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention or my focus to the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I now focus my attention on the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, hands on heart, we inherited an economy in deep crisis. Mr. Speaker, an economy hard hit with debt and beset by other fiscal challenges, such as large accumulation of MDRS, energy sector shortfalls, and financial sector payments. Mr. Speaker, recommitment control and reckless public spending have reversed the progress made in fiscal consolidation, even under the IMF program that commenced in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the gains made under the IMF-supported program that was to achieve through the painful sacrifice of domestic bondholders, external creditors, and taxpayers, the economy remains in distress. Right Honorable Speaker, key performance indicators to be assessed by the IMF staff in the upcoming fourth review of the program, scheduled for April 2025, such as the primary balance on commitment basis, inflation, social protection, and others, as at end 2024, are likely missed. Right Honorable Speaker, in addition, all structural benchmarks due by end December 2024 are also missed. So, Speaker, inflation worsened in the year 2024 from 23.2% in the year 2023 to 23.8% in 2024. So, Speaker, the 2024 end period inflation also exceeded the budget target of 15% by 8.8 percentage points and the IMF central target of 18% by 5.8 percentage points. Unfortunately, this has triggered a discussion with IMF under the Monetary Policy Consultation Clause. Right Honourable Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP in the year 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis target for 2024 was a surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, the previous government recorded a deficit of 3.9 percentage point of GDP. This presents a slippage of a whopping 4.4 percentage point. Right Honourable Speaker. At the end of December 2024, total central government arrests amounted to 67.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 5.2% of GDP. The Speaker, with the road sector recording an arrest of 21 billion Ghana cedis. The Speaker, when I assumed office on the 23rd of January 2025, my office was inundated with requests for payment from many contractors and suppliers. To ascertain the total arrests and outstanding payment for all MDAs, the Ministry of Finance decided to formally request all MDAs on the 28th of January 2028 to submit information on all arrests and outstanding claims for validation. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance held a special hearing with the MDAs to validate the arrests that were submitted for payment. The response from the MDAs and the validation revealed that a staggering amount of 67.5 billion Ghana cedis is owed to government contractors and suppliers. Mr. Speaker, this consists of MDA's outstanding interim payment of invoices worth 49.2 billion and bank transfer advice at the Controller Accountant General worth 18.3 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion excludes 1.73 billion US dollars owed to independent power producers. This 67 billion also excludes 68 billion Ghana cedis owned by Electricity Company of Ghana to contractors. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion US dollars also exclude the 32 billion owned by the Ghana Cocoa Board to contractors. And Mr. Speaker, this 67.5 billion also excludes the 5.75 billion owned by the Ghana Road Fund to various contractors. Right Honourable Speaker, the Bank of Ghana is also seeking an amount of 53 billion Ghana cedis as bailout to be able to address their negative equity challenge that they face. Mr. Speaker, as part of the measures to address these mounting accumulated arrests, we have commissioned an audit of these arrest payments and guarantee value for money before a penny will be paid. Mr. Speaker, before a penny will be paid, we'll commit to do that arrest. Right Honourable Speaker, in addition to the 67.5 billion cedis in arrests, the validation process also revealed that MDAs have awarded contract to the tune of a minimum 194 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount represents 16.5% of GDP as at the end of 2024, with the road sector again alone accounting for 100 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, most of these contractors and most of these contracts were awarded without commencement certificate and authorization. Mr. Speaker, this is in blatant violation of the Public Financial Management Act 921. Right Honourable Speaker, let me now update you on our debt service obligations. Mr. Speaker, apart from the huge arrests and commitment, our fiscal situation is further complicated by huge bullet debt service and constrained fiscal financing options. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the government option to finance the budget is limited to only Treasury bill market following the debt restructuring program. Moreover, the forthcoming debt service of both domestic and Eurobond debt obligation will have profound implications for fiscal sustainability and balance of payment. Right Honourable Speaker, domestic debt service alone, programmed for the next 4 years, is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, simply put, The interest and principal payment that will be due for payment beginning now for the next 4 years is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. This represents 11.6% of GDP in domestic debt service obligation alone. The Speaker, of this 150 billion Ghana cedis, 73.3% of this 150 billion Ghana cedis is due for payment in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, 2027 alone, the domestic debt service that will be falling due will be 57.6 billion, and 2028 will be made to call upon to pay 52.5 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, the debt service obligation of 2027 and 2028 are major harms. These harms are cancerous and pose significant risks to the economy of Ghana. But, Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we shall fix it. We shall fix it. Mr. Speaker, our debt service obligation of this financial year is equally burdensome with significant harms. February, we were called upon to pay 9.9 billion. July, we'll be paying 6.2 billion, and August, we'll be paying 10.1 billion, all this year. Right, Honorable Speaker, the fiscal challenges are further compounded by the significant short-term treasury bill that we also inherited. So, Speaker, these obligations, totaling about 111.1 billion Ghana cedis, requires rollover week in, week out, placing additional pressure on cash flows and liquidity requirements. Mr. Speaker, beyond the domestic maturities, Ghana faces significant external debt service obligations for the next 4 years. In the next 4 years, will be made to call upon to pay $8.7 billion representing 10.9% of GDP, with heavy concentration again in the year 2027 and 2028. Again, Mr. Speaker, 55% of this external debt service will be due in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, in the year 2027, we'll be made to pay $2.5 billion, and 2028, we'll have to again pay $2.4 billion. Right, Honorable Speaker, it seems the debt restructuring undertaken by the previous administration was designed to make 2027 and 2028 debt repayment heavy, sadly. So, Speaker, I don't know how come we sat and allowed that design to happen. So, Speaker, that is cancerous. But I can assure you, we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, in spite of all this upcoming domestic and external debt service obligation, no buffers were built to cushion this unprecedented debt service burden. Mr. Speaker, as of 7 January 2025, the debt service reserve account, the sinking fund in dollar, has a balance of $64,000. The Speaker, when we were leaving office, we left behind $319 million in that same account. The Speaker, the debt service reserve CD account had an amount of 143 million Ghana cedis. Right, Honorable Speaker, when we were leaving office, the balance was 430 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, I now move you to stalled project. The Speaker, due to the bilateral creditors' debt restructuring that is ongoing, undertaken by previous administration, a staggering number of 55 projects have been halted. Mr. Speaker, this leaves a massive amount of $3 billion in undisbursed loans and about $300 million in outstanding interim payment certificates, IPCs. Some of these projects include the famous Ifia Kwanta Hospital, the Kejetia Market Phase 2, the Bolgatanga Boko Pomakrom Road, and the Tema Aflawa Road project. Delayed payment and demobilization from site could result in cost overruns of over $1.1 billion. Right, Honorable Speaker, The IMF-supported program imposed an annual disbursement ceiling of $250 million for all bilateral loans that are being restructured. This constraint means that it will take a minimum of 12 years to complete all of this stalled program. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, as a result of the debt restructuring or this stalled program, working with the IMF will take a minimum of 12 years if we decide to go business as usual. We'll be engaging in the coming days to resolve this challenge. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the famous energy sector fiscal risk. Mr. Speaker, the increase in energy sector financing shortfall is posing significant risk to the Ghanaian economy. In the year 2024, the Ministry of Finance supported the energy sector with payment of about 20.8 billion Ghana cedis. These resources could have been used for job creation and other development programs, like roads, schools, and hospitals, if the sector inefficiencies were resolved. Mr. Speaker, a recent exercise conducted by the Energy Sector Financing Modeling Team under the Energy Sector Recovery Program, ESRP, revealed that the business-as-usual energy sector financing shortfall has increased significantly to about 35 billion Ghana cedis for the year 2025 alone, even after spending in excess of 20 billion cedis in the year 2024. Right Honourable Speaker, more importantly, the shortfall for the period 2023 to 2026 has been estimated to be about 140 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount is 20 times more than the allocation for goods and service for all MDAs in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, in addition, the energy sector shortfalls, which relate to current invoices that are largely unpaid legacy arrests due to the independent power producers. Mr. Speaker, the legacy arrests stood at $1.73 billion as at end 2024. Right Honourable Speaker, the cocoa sector, which has long been the backbone of the Ghanaian economy, is sadly on its knees, owing to gross mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, the sector faces declining output and financing challenges, characterized by unsustainable debt, rover cocoa contract risk, and quasi-fiscal expenditures, including cocoa roads, which, Mr. Speaker, is a non-core function of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Right Honourable Speaker, cocoa production has dropped by nearly 50% over the past 3 years. In the year 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was unable to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa to meet its contractual obligation. This sharply decline has affected the finances of Ghana Cocoa Board. This undersupply has been rolled over for subsequent years for the new administration to pay. Mr. Speaker, these 2023 to 2024 forward sales contracts, locked in at lower prices than the current market rates, have resulted in revenue losses of about $840 million for both Ghana Cocoa Board and the impoverished cocoa farmer. Right Honourable Speaker, the rollout cocoa contract has resulted in a loss of $495 million for the year 2025 alone. Mr. Speaker, these are the risks in relation to the market price differentials and, as a result, costs causing the smuggling that we see with Ghana Cocoa Board. Mr. Speaker, Cocoa Board outstanding debt amount to 32 billion Ghana cedis, of which 11.92 billion is due to be paid in the year 2025. Outstanding cocoa road contracts reached 21 billion Ghana cedis, approximately $1.3 billion in the year 2024, of which only 4.4 billion has been accounted for in Cocoa Board's finances for the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, the financial sector still struggles even after spending 30.3 billion in the financial sector cleanup exercise by end 2024. This includes 26.9 billion Ghana cedis after spending this amount in the banking sector. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the financial sector is still struggling, and the financial sector will require 10.45 billion Ghana cedis to address the financial sector legacy issues and emerging risk. In addition, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis is required to fully capitalize the National Investment Bank and the Agricultural Development Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I will also update the House on the fiscal performance for the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance in the year 2024 was characterized by improved revenue collection, but with significant expenditure overruns. In addition, large arrests were accumulated over the period. Mr. Speaker, in summary, the provisional data shows the following. 1. Primary balance on commitment basis, the key fiscal anchor of the IMF program, worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP at the end of 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% of GDP at the end of the year 2024. This is 4.4 percentage points worse than the target surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, Mr. Speaker. On cash basis, Mr. Speaker, the primary balance was a deficit of 1.2% of GDP against a target of 0.6% of GDP, representing a 100% deviation. Mr. Speaker, the overall fiscal balance on commitment basis for 2024 was a deficit of 7.9% of GDP against a target of 4.2% of GDP, while the overall fiscal balance on cash basis was a deficit of 5.2% of GDP against a target of 5.3% of GDP. Total revenue and grant amounted to 186.6 billion Ghana cedis, or 15.9% of GDP, 5.3% above the revised target of 177.2 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.4% of GDP. The performance was mainly driven by higher than programmed oil and gas receipt and higher non-oil tax revenue collection. Total expenditure on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 279.2 billion, or 23.7% of GDP. This is 27.1% above the budget provisions of the year 2024, Mr. Speaker. The primary balance on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 232.4 billion, or 19.8% of GDP. This is 35.3% above the target of 171.7 billion, or 16.8% of GDP. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, all expenditure lines exceeded their respective target for the period, except for interest payments, goods and service, and other expenditures. Right Honourable Speaker, the discrepancies for the year 2024 being unclassified expenditure was 3.8 billion Ghana cedis as compared to 12.9 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, at the end of December 2024, provisional data indicate that gross central government and guaranteed debt was 726.7 billion from 610 billion in 2023. This represents 61.8% of GDP in 2024, compared to 68.7% in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP ratio and the dollar component of our debt that has come down, that has reduced, is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal of Eurobond debt under the debt restructuring. Mr. Speaker, it is important to know that. Mr. Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP that has reduced is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal and interest that were given to Eurobond bondholders. Mr. Speaker, you may recall that the government commenced the debt restructuring program in the year 2022 to restore debt sustainability and economic stability. As of now, the restructuring process is approximately 93% completed. The remaining 7% relate to debt of $2.7 billion owed to commercial creditors. We are committed to completing the remaining debt restructuring as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, real sector development in the year 2024. Right Honourable Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistics Service on the 10th of March 2025 shows that overall real GDP growth increase. Mr. Speaker, at the end of increased to 5.7% in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, I take that again. Mr. Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistics Service on the 10th of March 2025 show that overall GDP growth grew by 5.7% of GDP in the year 2027, compared to the growth rate of 3.1% recorded over the same period. Mr. Speaker, the key driver of this growth was largely coming from gold mine, Mr. Speaker, including Galamsey. Including Galamsey. Mr. Speaker, Galamsey growth cannot be sustainable. Mr. Speaker, non-oil GDP growth. Mr. Speaker, the non-oil GDP grew by 0.6% in the year 2024, compared with the growth rate of 3.6% recorded in 2023. Mr. Speaker, the gross international reserves increased to a stock position of $8.98 billion at the end of 2024 and was enough to cover 4 months of imports, exceeding the target of a floor of 3 months of import cover. At the end of 2024, the currency had depreciated by 19.2% against the US dollars, 17.8% against the euro, against the British pound, Mr. Speaker, and it had depreciated by 13.7% against the euro. Mr. Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, it is what it is. The state of our economy is troubling, but we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we will fix it. But Mr. Speaker, it will require some sacrifices, truthfulness, transparency, and discipline. We will take strong measures to confront the situation head on. Mr. Speaker, the sacrifice must come from all stakeholders, beginning with the government. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency the President appreciates this and has led the charge by significantly downsizing his government from the Elephant 88 to the Umbrella 60. Mr. Speaker, he has also reduced the number of his government ministries from the Elephant 30 to the Umbrella 23. Mr. Speaker, as part of the contribution to the resetting agenda, organized labor has followed suit by working with government and employers association to agree on a modest 10% increase in base pay and minimum wage for the year 2025. Right Honourable Speaker, on behalf of His Excellency the President, I would like to express my profound gratitude to organized labor and employers. Mr. Speaker, ordinary Ghanaians have also sacrificed by enduring the negative impact of severe currency depreciation since 2022. Hyperinflation, high food inflation, principal and interest haircut, soaring interest rates, among others. Mr. Speaker, it is now time for the people's representative, the members of Parliament, and the judiciary to also follow suit. I would like to call on all other stakeholders, including the business community, faith-based organizations, academia, and civil society to support this national call. So, Speaker, our immediate task is to reset our nation, to restore good governance, reduce the excruciating suffering of our people, and set our country on a trajectory of economic transformation. Mr. Speaker, our vision is to build a prosperous and a democratic state, anchored on the principles of freedom and justice, providing equal opportunities for all. Mr. Speaker, through this vision, we will work together to build the Ghana we want. Right Honourable Speaker, the resetting agenda will be anchored on the following. 1. Restoring hope in our democracy, renewing trust in public officials, and helping every Ghanaian attain their full potential. Offering a trusted hand to the vulnerable, particularly women and youth, and creating a new Ghana for coming generations. And finally, stimulating demand by patronizing made-in-Ghana goods under the 24-hour economy. Mr. Speaker, today I came to this chamber with made-in-Ghana bag, signifying, Mr. Speaker, with made-in-Ghana bag, Mr. Speaker, I would like to first present, Mr. Speaker, they don't know that in Ghana we sew suit. Right, Honourable Speaker, I would like to first present the government's immediate and strong measures to address the current challenges we are confronted with, followed by the medium-term vision, policy objectives and targets. Right, Honourable Speaker, consistent with Section 14 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 911, the fiscal policy objectives of this government is to support the economic transformation agenda to ensure the macroeconomic stability of the country within the macroeconomic and fiscal framework. More specifically, the fiscal policy objective of the government include the following: rationalizing government expenditure and eliminating wasteful expenditures, optimizing domestic revenue mobilization through broadening of tax base, increased non-tax revenue collection, adopting enhanced tax compliance measures, and modernizing the tax administration through digital technology. Mr. Speaker, we will also increase the share of domestic expenditure to spur economic growth and job creation. We'll be reducing public debt to sustainable levels and adopting prudent debt management practice to support debt sustainability. Reducing the fiscal deficit progressively in accordance with the amended Fiscal Responsibility Act to promote fiscal and debt sustainability. And Mr. Speaker, restoring confidence in the Ghana economy. Right Honourable Speaker, our approach will be to foster economic growth, accelerate job creation, reduce inflation, and stabilize the cedi. To achieve this, it is crucial that we establish the macroeconomic stability and ensure debt sustainability. Mr. Speaker, we are confident that by prioritizing these fundamental elements, we can cultivate an environment where individuals can prosper and businesses can thrive in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians, through the recent National Economic Dialogue, have expressed a clear desire for fiscal deficit and public debt to be reduced through cuts in government spending rather than through only tax measures. We wholeheartedly agree, Mr. Speaker. Going forward, we will tailor our expenditure to align with our fiscal realities. After all, whoever pays off their debt gets rich. Mr. Speaker, we are poised to implement a three-pronged approach to achieve our objective, beginning with this budget immediately. First will be to recalibrate the fiscal adjustment, and we believe that by prioritizing spending-led fiscal adjustment can initiate a positive cycle Fiscal adjustment can initiate a positive cycle in a way that, first, it will help lower inflation and curb depreciation of the cedi. Secondly, it will lessen government reliance on borrowing, which in turn will reduce the crowding out of private sector and lower interest rates. Lastly, this approach will ease the strain on monetary policy, allowing the central bank some greater flexibility to reduce monetary policy rates, ultimately resulting in lower bank and lending rates. Mr. Speaker, the second approach will be to deliver shock therapy. Mr. Speaker, we are implementing a form of shock therapy to the economy by making significant spending cuts this year, thereby reducing the government financing needs and front-loading fiscal adjustment. This is the down payment for our policy credibility and credit worthiness. Right Honourable Speaker, our third approach will be to restore fiscal responsibility. By moving forward, we will enhance public financial management by empowering ministers to effectively manage their budget on their own, ensuring strict compliance with the commencement certificate. Mr. Speaker, we'll be passing and enforcing a revised Fiscal Responsibility Act. And finally, we will enforce the sanction regime for non-compliance of the Public Financial Management Act. Mr. Speaker, in pursuit of the over-address inflation, government will implement a number of measures to complement the Bank of Ghana and monetary authorities. Mr. Speaker, the measures to stabilize the exchange rate include the following. We will be establishing the Ghana Gold Board to enhance the generation of accumulation of forex to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. The Bank of Ghana will continue to implement its FX forward auction to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. Government's strong fiscal consolidation through the reduction in public sector spending and the fiscal deficit will reduce the pressure on the exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, our import substitution drive under the 24-hour economy involving domestic production of key products originally imported will reduce import and related FX requirements, boding well for FX stability. Right Honourable Speaker, we are addressing the inflation problems through a number of measures, including the following. First, specific interventions, including the Agriculture for Economic Transformational Agenda, is expected to increase food production and reduce food inflation. Government will implement policies that target items with large weight in the CPI basket, such as transportation and utility, to reduce their prices. Mr. Speaker, our aggressive fiscal consolidation drive aimed at reducing the fiscal deficit and borrowing will contribute significantly to reducing inflationary pressures. Right Honourable Speaker, our strategy to improve exchange rate stability will reduce imported inflation and fuel prices. And Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana will maintain an appropriate monetary policy stance and use its liquidity management interventions to support the disinflation process. Right Honourable Speaker, to achieve our expenditure-led fiscal consolidation objectives, we will implement the following measures. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to our expenditure measures. Mr. Speaker, the following expenditure measures will be implemented in 2025 and the medium term to support fiscal consolidation agenda. First, we will conduct a comprehensive audit to validate the quantum of arrests and commitment as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, the mandatory use of blanket purchase order to capture multi-year commitment contracts in line with our medium-term expenditure ceilings will be implemented. We will amend the Public Procurement Act to provide for an independent value-for-money office to scrutinize government procurement. Mr. Speaker, we will also work with Parliament to amend the Public Procurement Act to make commencement certificate and budgetary provision a prerequisite for all procurement that will be paid by the central government. Mr. Speaker, we will fully integrate GANEPS and GIFMIS to ensure that only MDA's projects and purchase orders that have approved budget and allotment can obtain procurement approvals. Mr. Speaker, we will operationalize the compliance desk at the Ministry of Finance to monitor reports on commitment and arrest accumulation. Mr. Speaker, aside that, we will publish a PFM league table for compliance purposes. We will strictly enforce sanctions under the sections 96 to 98 of the Public Financial Management Act for breaches of the PFM Act, specifically those that relate to arrest accumulation and commitment control. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will cut waste, and we will cut it very deep. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, we have selected expenditure items including the Ghana Cares, the U-Start, One District, One Factory for complete elimination. Mr. Speaker, we will reassign the functions of development authorities such as Coastal Development Authority, the Northern Development Authority, the Middle Belt Development Authority to the district assemblies and do away with the development authorities. So, Speaker, we will amend the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to allocate all ABFA resources for infrastructure use, not for goods and services, but for infrastructure use. So, Speaker, the National Health Insurance will receive full allocation under the earmark funds capping and realignment act. So, Speaker, the road fund will receive full allocation under the earmark fund and capping and realignment act. So, Speaker, JNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30, we will reduce the GNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30% to 15%, and fully restore transfers to GMPC under the earmark fund and capping alignment act. Right, Honorable Speaker, we'll be amending the Mineral Income and Investment Fund Act to ensure that 80% of the royalties originally maintained by MIF is transferred to the Consolidated Fund for Infrastructure Development. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will strengthen social protection through the implementation of new interventions such as the no academic fee policy for all first-year students in public tertiary institutions under the No Fee Stress Initiative. Mr. Speaker, it also includes the free tertiary education for persons with disability, free primary health care, the Ghana Medical Trust Care, otherwise known as Mahama Care, and free sanitary pads for schoolgirls. Mr. Speaker, to address the energy sector challenges, including reducing the quantum of large energy sector shortfalls, the following energy sector recovery program interventions will be implemented this year. First, Mr. Speaker, ECG and NEDCO will implement a number of measures, including metering and implementation of private sector participation. Mr. Speaker, we'll also implement the liquid fuel to gas swap through an increase in N-gas supply from 60 MMSC per day to 100 MMSC to take advantage of cheaper gas prices and others. Mr. Speaker, we will complete the IPP capacity renegotiation to generate some savings through negotiated lower fixed capacity charges and variable O&M charges. Mr. Speaker, as agreed with the IMF by the previous administration, we will implement the following ESRP measures to achieve the structural benchmark of the IMF program. Mr. Speaker, PURC will continue to implement the quarterly tariff adjustment to reflect changes in inflation, exchange rate, and generation mix. Mr. Speaker, PURC will also undertake a major tariff adjustment, which will be due in fourth quarter of 2025, to reflect capacity charges, additional liquid fuel usage, and additional CAPEX. The weighted average cost of gas will be increased from the current $7.80 per MMBTU to $8.45 to reflect the increased prices of natural gas as well as the changes in the supply mix. So, Speaker, the subsidy on weighted average cost of gas granted to some ceramic companies through the discounted industrial development tariff will be reversed. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the revenue measures. Revenue measures. Mr. Speaker, in proposing some revenue measures to achieve the 2025 fiscal target for your consideration, I'll first take you to the IMF requirement. Mr. Speaker, this measure is inconsistent with our commitment under the IMF-supported program to observe a non-oil tax revenue effort of 0.6% point of GDP annually as part of the measures to improve domestic revenue mobilization and achieve our debt sustainability target over the medium term. Right, Honorable Speaker, despite our commitment to increase the non-oil tax revenue by 0.6%, we have programmed the following nuisance taxes for removal in line with our manifesto promise. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. We will abolish the emission levy, otherwise as in Wusie tax. We will abolish the VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold by small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable income. Right, Honorable Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable incomes. In addition, it will support business growth and improve tax compliance. Mr. Speaker, Right, Honorable Speaker, the tax refund account has been abused in recent years. In the last 8 years, a study revealed that 29.1 billion Ghana cedis had accrued to the tax refund account, with only 12.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 43% of the total accrued amount, being used for tax refund purposes. Mr. Speaker, the study also revealed that 16.6 billion Ghana cedis, representing 57% of the total amount accumulated in the tax refund account, was misapplied. Mr. Speaker, which is a total violation of the Revenue Administration Act, Act 915, and the Public Financial Management Act. Instructively, Mr. Speaker, there were virtually no tax refund arrests over the period. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, we are reducing the current tax refund ceiling by 2 percentage points from 6% to 4% of total revenue, as defined in Section 69 of the Revenue Administration Act, Act 915. Mr. Speaker, by reducing the ceiling on the tax refund from 6% to 4%, right, Honorable Speaker, we have saved the taxpayer 3.8 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount is enough to close the revenue shortfalls from the removal of the e-levy and the betting levy. So, Speaker, the e-levy would have accrued 1.9 billion Ghana cedis, and the betting tax would have accrued 180 million. The two put together is just above 2 billion Ghana cedis. By reducing the tax refund account from 6 to 4, It is enough to remove this tax, and the savings will be provided to take care of social interventions. Mr. Speaker, already we have saved 3.8 billion cedis for 2025 alone from one source, and this is enough to close the gap from the taxes we have removed today. Mr. Speaker, to address the concerns from well-meaning Ghanaians on how we are going to close the revenue shortfalls as a result of the removal of the selected taxes, the answer is that we have stopped the bleeding. We have stopped the bleeding. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, with this budget, we will amend the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915. This measure will improve the tax revenue net of tax refund by 2%, representing 0.3% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, in line with government policy, the 2025 minimum wage recently negotiated with the National Tripartite Committee will be zero rated. This is consistent with our resolve to protect the poor and the vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, again, without increasing the levy, we will also review the Energy Sector Levies Act to consolidate the energy debt recovery, the Energy Sector Recovery Levy, and the Sanitation and Pollution Levy into one levy and use the proceeds to cater for energy sector shortfalls and service the inherited debt service obligation. Mr. Speaker, the reset has just begun. Right, Honorable Speaker, the rest of the energy sector levies, including the Road Fund Levy, Energy Fund Levy, Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy, Public Lighting Levy, and National Electrification Levy will remain to support the achievement of their intended objectives. Right, Honorable Speaker, Ghana has not sufficiently capitalized on the benefits of its extractive sector to generate revenue to support development and diversification. We have failed to leverage our natural wealth by capturing its rent and channeling it towards productive infrastructure and human capital. Natural resource rent, which is the difference between the revenue of a commodity and the average cost of producing that commodity, is about 14% of GDP in the case of Ghana. However, Mr. Speaker, revenue from extractive industry is around 1.5% of GDP only. This is because, as a country, we have failed to fully capture the economic rent of our natural resources. Mr. Speaker, whereas global gold prices have seen some significant increase in recent times, Ghana has not been able to take full advantage of the development. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, we are proposing to increase the growth and sustainability levy from 1% on gross production of mining companies to 3% to enable the nation to have its fair share of the windfall. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause to 2028. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause of the special import levy to 2028. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians and this Honorable House will recall that road tolls on public roads were zero rated in the year 2022. Demand for construction and improvement of road infrastructure continues to increase, even as substantial arrests and claims in the road sector remains. Right, Honorable Speaker, while the annual average collection from road tolls have not been significant compared to its potential, the existing zero-rated policy for road tolls has increased the situation and dimmed the prospect of raising enough revenue from tolls to road construction and maintenance. Accordingly, government will work with the stakeholders, including the private sector, to roll out a technology-driven solution to reintroduce road tolls this year as part of the big push. Right Honourable Speaker, we will also strengthen the legal and regulatory regime for non-tax revenue and enforce the framework to improve service delivery. This will be achieved through the introduction of an overarching non-tax revenue legislation, amendment of existing relevant laws, and the development of a national non-tax revenue strategy and policy. Mr. Speaker, as part of the reforms to improve other non-tax revenue streams, government will explore the operationalization of a regulatory framework for collection, management, and reporting of property rates consistent with our medium-term revenue strategy 2024 to 2027 and the Local Government Act. Mr. Speaker, we believe that the local authorities must be given the opportunity to collect their own property rates. Mr. Speaker, the current compliance rate for SMEs and personal income tax is below 30%, which is extremely low. Government will embark on an aggressive and sustained tax education campaign in the next 2 to 3 years to ensure improved compliance and tax revenue mobilization. We will also institute a quarterly dialogue on tax issues among the Ghana Revenue Authority, Ministry of Finance, and the business community to ensure that issues affecting businesses are addressed promptly. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to VAT reforms, VAT reforms. Right Honourable Speaker, we commit to the people of Ghana and this House, the business community, that we will undertake a comprehensive value-added tax reform this year. Mr. Speaker, with the aim to review the current distortions and cascading structure of the value-added tax regime. Ghana's effective rate, VAT rate is about 22%. This is obviously because the 2.5% Get Fund levy, the National Health Insurance levy of 2.5%, and the COVID levy are well added to the base for a final determination of what is due for VAT purposes. Mr. Speaker, aside the high VAT rate, businesses are not permitted by law to claim their input VAT for NHIL, Get Fund, and COVID levy, compounding the burden on households. Right Honourable Speaker, our VAT regime has been distorted and rendered inefficient. It combines both VAT and sales tax principles with a flat rate, standard rate, and levies. We have requested for technical assistance from the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF on VAT reforms. It is expected that the IMF mission will commence in April 2025. The recommendations from the Technical Assistance Mission are expected to inform our reform. Mr. Speaker, ahead of the IMF Technical Assistance Mission, I will inaugurate a VAT reform task force to hold broad consultation with key stakeholders for their input. Mr. Speaker, the parameters for VAT reform will be is for them to complete this year. Mr. Speaker, the parameters will include the following. 1, abolishing the COVID levy. Mr. Speaker, reversing the decoupling of Get Fund and NHIL VAT from VAT. Mr. Speaker, reducing the effective VAT rate for households and businesses. Reversing the VAT flat rate regime and upwardly adjusting the VAT registration threshold to exempt micro and small businesses from the collection of VAT. Mr. Speaker, will also improve compliance through public education and awareness. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to revenue mobilization and resource allocation. Mr. Speaker, total revenue and grant for 2025 is projected at 223.8 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.2% of GDP, up from 186.5 billion, or 17.4% of GDP. The projection is underpinned by non-oil revenue measures, which are expected to yield at least 0.6% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure on commitment basis for 2025 has been programmed at 269.1 billion, representing 20.7% of GDP, down from 279.2 billion, which is 26% of GDP in the year 2020 2024. Primary expenditure on commitment basis is projected at 204.7 billion Ghana cedis, representing 15.8% of GDP, which is a significant decline from 232.4 billion, representing 21.7% of GDP in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, based on the resource allocation from 2025 fiscal year, the total appropriations for the year ending 31st December 2025 is 290,971,212,435 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, budget financing. Right Honorable Speaker, based on the estimate for total revenue and grant and total expenditure, the projected overall balance on commitment basis is a deficit of 43.8 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 3.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on commitment basis is a surplus of 20.3 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 1.5% of GDP. On cash basis, Mr. Speaker, overall balance is a deficit of 56.9 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 4.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on cash basis is again a surplus of 7.3 billion, equivalent to 0.5% of GDP. Right Honorable Speaker, the cash deficit of 56.9 billion is expected to be financed from both foreign and domestic sources. The total foreign net financing will amount to 21.4 billion Ghana cedis. Foreign financing will include a provision for financing from IMF ECF program disbursed of 720 billion Ghana cedis and the World Bank Development Policy operations of 600 million Ghana cedis. The residual net domestic financing will amount to 36.9 billion, representing 65% of total financing for 2025. This is expected to be sourced from the issuance of debt at the short end of the domestic market and opening of the domestic market. Mr. Speaker, the government will take steps to reopen the domestic bond market to extend the maturity profile. The reopening will be executed cautiously to establish large-size benchmark bonds that will enhance market liquidity. Right Honorable Speaker, further is to reduce the risk on debt portfolio of government, and we will build cash buffers to support effective implementation of the liability management strategy. Mr. Speaker, this will help smoothen the redemption profile and mitigate refinancing risk associated with Ghana's debt portfolio. Mr. Speaker, the government in 2025 and the medium term will implement liability management operations to manage the risk embedded in the Eurobond debt profile. Right Honorable Speaker, beginning 2025, we will commence the operationalization of Section 37 to Section 44 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, we will be building sufficient buffers in the sinking fund as a landmark reform to manage our public debt. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm pleased to report to the House that following our proactive fiscal management strategy, in our engagement with the market, this management strategy has yielded sufficient dividend. Mr. Speaker, on the 7th of January 2025, the NDC government inherited a 91-day Treasury bill rate of 28.19%. Mr. Speaker, just 2 months into this administration, we have successfully reduced this rate to 17.72% as at last Friday. Mr. Speaker, this represents a reduction of over 10%. In other words, 1,047 basis points in just 2 months. Mr. Speaker, similarly, on the 7th January 2024, we inherited a 182-day Treasury bill rate at 28.92%. We have again successfully reduced that rate to 18.97% as at Friday, 7th March 2025. This represents a reduction of 995 basis points in only 2 months. Mr. Speaker, again, on the 7th of January 2025, we inherited a 364-day Treasury bill rate of 30.15%. We have successfully reduced this rate to 19.93% as at Friday, 7th March 2025. Mr. Speaker, this represents a reduction of 1,022 basis points in just 2 months. Mr. Speaker, on average, rates have fallen by over 1,000 basis points, signifying a strong investor confidence, crowding in the private sector, reducing the cost of doing business, and overall acceptance of economic policies of President John Dramani Mahama, ultimately laying the groundwork for sustained macroeconomic stability. It has been done already. Mr. Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, the key policy intervention to support economic transformation and job creation agenda include the following. So, Speaker, the 24-hour economy aimed at stimulating economic growth by creating an enabling environment for businesses and institutions to operate 24/7 in 3 shifts of 8 hours each to boost production, promote productivity, and generate well-paying jobs. We will be presenting the policy to Parliament in due course for consideration. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the GIPC Act, and other enabling legislations will be reviewed to support the 24-hour economy policy. Right Honourable Speaker, we will roll out the implementation of the $10 billion Big Push policy for strategic infrastructure development to open up the country and drive sustainable economic growth. Right Honourable Speaker, the Ghana Gold Board will be established in the course of the year and as soon as possible. So, Speaker, we will stabilize the Ghana cedi and provide stability to the macroeconomy. We will implement an economic transformational agenda underpinned by structural reforms anchored on promoting modernized agriculture, agribusiness, and value addition for import substitution, export, and job creation. Mr. Speaker, we will complement monetary policy with fiscal and real sector policies to reduce inflation. Food inflation will be reduced through the implementation of the Agriculture for Economic Transformation agenda anchored on our 24-hour economy. Right Honourable Speaker, we will undertake key structural reforms to support inclusive economic growth, fiscal and debt sustainability, sound public financial management, efficient public service delivery, and good governance. The Speaker will restructure the Bank of Ghana to strengthen its independence and operationalize its efficiency mandate. The Speaker will ensure that social protection is adequately catered for in the course of the year. We will use government procurement to drive Made in Ghana agenda to promote production and consumption of Made in Ghana goods. Right Honourable Speaker, to demonstrate this agenda, as I said, I came to this House with a presentation of a bag proudly made in Ghana by Horseman. Mr. Speaker, this should be encouraged. Right Honourable Speaker, beginning this year, we will formalize the export of Ghanaian labour to other countries. We will ensure a structured and beneficial system for Ghanaian workers seeking employment abroad and create safer legal pathway for them to work in foreign countries whilst protecting their rights and welfare. Mr. Speaker, this will also reduce illegal immigration, prevent worker exploitation, and maximize the economic benefits of remittance and boost foreign exchange earners. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to how these resources will be allocated in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, we will provide a cedi equivalent of $279 million as a revolving fund for the Ghana Gold Board to be able to purchase and export at least 3 tons of gold per week
from small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for Big Push project. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for the Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 499.8 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the non-academic fee policy for all first-year students in public tertiary institutions under the No Fee Stress initiatives. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated an amount of 292.4 million Ghana cedis to commence the distribution of free sanitary pads to female students in primary and secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated again an amount of 242.5 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of Akosombo Dam spillage. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 200 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of tidal wave disaster that recently displaced resident in certain part of K2 South constituency. Mr. Speaker, the overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of dedicated sources of financing. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved it. Mr. Speaker, let me take this again. The overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of a dedicated sources of funding. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved the funding challenges by uncapping the GET fund. Mr. Speaker, this makes available dedicated funding for full financing of free senior secondary school education and free tertiary education for persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, therefore, Capping and Realignment Act will be amended to uncap the Ghana Education Trust Fund. Mr. Speaker, this year, the budget for free senior secondary school education program is 3.5 billion Ghana cedis. By uncapping the GET fund, we will be making available an additional 4.1 billion Ghana cedis, specifically for financing free secondary education program and other related expenditures. Mr. Speaker, aside the uncapping of GET fund, we have also absorbed the debt service made up of interest and principal from the Dache bond that GET fund contracted. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 564.6 million Ghana cedis for the provision of curriculum-based textbooks covering the following. 1, 4 sets of KG books and workbooks for about 2.8 million learners. Mr. Speaker, we have also provided for 4 sets of primary textbooks for about 800,000 learners. Mr. Speaker, we have also provided for 9 sets of SHS textbooks for about 540,000 learners. Right, Honorable Speaker, under the school feeding program, budgetary provision has been increased from the 1.3 billion Ghana cedis last year to 1.78 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, representing a 33% increase. The allocation for 2025 reflects an increase in feeding costs per meal, per child, from the 1 cedi 50 pesos to 2 cedis, representing 33.3%. Mr. Speaker, the government has also allocated 145.5 million Ghana cedis to the capitation grant, up from 84 million Ghana cedis in 2024. This is an increase of 73.4% over the previous year. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 203 million Ghana cedis for the payment of teacher training allowances and another 480 million Ghana cedis to nursing training allowances. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. An amount of about 10 billion Ghana cedis has been programmed for the National Health Insurance Scheme. And this amount is expected to be used for the following: claim payments, essential medicine, vaccine payment, free primary health care, the Ghana Medical Care Trust, Mr. Speaker, and bridging the USAID financing shortfall. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2025, government will continue to implement reforms and increase budgetary allocation to enhance the implementation of 4 targeted social protection programs, namely National Health Insurance, the LEAP program, the school feeding program, and the capitation grant. Right Honorable Speaker, under the LEAP program, beneficiaries will be increased from the current 350,000 to 400,000 beginning July 2025. The allocation of 728.8 million Ghana cedis for last year has been increased to 953.5 million Ghana cedis in the year 2025. So, Speaker, we have also uncapped the road fund. An amount of 2.81 billion Ghana cedis has been programmed for the Ghana Road Fund to be used solely for road maintenance. This represents an increase of 155% over the 2024 allocation of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the District Assembly Common Fund. In accordance with our decentralization policy, we propose to Parliament that a minimum of 80% of the funds allocated to the District Assembly Common Fund should be sent directly to the district assemblies to spur economic growth and at the district level to deepen decentralization. Right Honorable Speaker, I repeat, we have allocated an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the District Assemblies Common Fund. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with our decentralization policy and objective, we propose to Parliament that a minimum of 80% of the funds should be sent directly to the District Assemblies to spur economic growth at the district level and deepen decentralization. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that in a stark contrast to what has happened recently at the District Assembly Common Fund, where only 50% of the released amount are sent to the District Assembly for the purposes of running the assemblies. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis for Agriculture for Economic Transformational Program, of which Feed Ghana, Ghana Grains Development Project, Vegetable Development Project, and Nkoko Nketenkete are all key components of the program. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated 51.3 million Ghana cedis as seed fund for the establishment of the Women's Development Bank. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 300 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, we have also allocated an amount of 300 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 100 million Ghana cedis to the Edumewura Program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated to the National Codes Program. Mr. Speaker, another amount of 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the payment of monthly allowance to all Assembly members. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as, Mr. Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as sector-specific policy interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. So, Speaker, I want to repeat this. So, Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as specific sector interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. This is indeed a departure from the norm, where ministers of finance present detailed sectorial performance as part of their budget speech. So, Speaker, I believe sector ministers must be made to do so. Right Honorable Speaker, in conclusion. So, Speaker, in conclusion. Mr. Speaker, the state of the economy, as I have presented, does not reflect an economy that has turned the corner. It reflects an economy in severe distress, burdened with debt repayment harms, mismanagement, and lack of accountability. The budget sets Ghana on a path of fiscal responsibility, debt sustainability, macroeconomic stability, and job creation. It is about resetting the economy and restoring hope. Ghanaians reaffirmed their faith in a better future when they actively participated in the National Economic Dialogue on the 3rd and 4th of March 2025. A key outcome of the dialogue was the confirmation that the fundamental problem with our economy is fiscal indiscipline. The NPP administration awarded contracts outside the expenditure framework. They borrowed over and above Ghana's capacity to repay. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahamad's administration will be fiscally disciplined and deliver improved public service to our people in a cost-effective manner. Mr. Speaker, we remain steadfast in meeting the IMF program target while restoring Ghana's creditworthiness. We have achieved a lot in a short time, but this is only the beginning. Our commitment to reform we will not waver on that, Mr. Speaker. We have achieved a lot in this short time, and our commitment to reform will not waver. Those who doubt our resolve should not underestimate the determination of the people of Ghana, who will no longer tolerate ineffective governance. Together, we will navigate these turbulent times and emerge stronger. Mr. Speaker, we are making serious progress. Right Honorable Speaker, we are making progress. We committed to running a lean, efficient government of 60 ministers. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the e-levy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the Burton tax. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to eliminate academic fee for first-year public tertiary students. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing free tertiary education for all people with disability. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing dedicated source of funding for free secondary education. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to distributing sanitary pads to our schoolgirls. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap Get Fund. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap the National Health Insurance. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to uncap the road fund to maintain our roads. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to hold a national forum on education. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to hold a national dialogue on the economy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free primary health care. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver Mahama Care Program to finance the treatment of non-communicable disease. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free textbooks to school children. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to begin the implementation of $10 million Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to constitute a review process for our constitution. Mr. Speaker, we are delivering. Mr. Speaker, we committed to build the Ghana we want together. We are delivering. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to recover all looted state funds under our Operation Recover All Loot program. We are delivering. Mr. Speaker, we committed to reset Ghana. We are delivering. Right Honorable Speaker, I call on Parliament, the business community, civil society, investors, and all citizens to support the bold reforms outlined in this budget. Together, Mr. Speaker, we have the power to build a resilient economy that will help us tackle the challenges we face as a country. This budget is a foundation upon which we will build a more resilient and equitable society. Mr. Speaker, this budget is not just about numbers. It is about a blueprint for growth, stability, and opportunity. With unity and determination, we can restore faith in our economy, foster innovation, and uplift every Ghanaian. Mr. Speaker, with unity and determination, I repeat, we can restore faith in our economy, foster innovation, and uplift every Ghanaian. Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of His Excellency the President, I invite this House to join hands with us as we work to build the Ghana we want together. Mr. Speaker, I thank you so much. Idebi Keke.
members. Honorable members, the Minister for Finance has taken 1 hour 40 minutes to make the statement. And I believe by our standing orders, the statement time is ended. We now move on to the commencement of public business. Item 8, presentation of papers. The following papers to be presented. Presentation of papers. The following papers to be presented. 8A by the Minister for Finance.
Annual report on the petroleum fund for the 2024 fiscal year.
Honorable members, this refers to 8A Roman 1, and this has been presented and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report to the House. We now move on to 8A Roman 2.
Annual report on the collection and utilization of the African Union import levy for the 2024 fiscal year.
Honorable members, this report is also duly laid and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report to the House. I will now want to hear from the leaders. I saw the minority leader give an indication that he may want to have a word. Yes. Yes, minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we have been presented with part 2 of the lamentation series. The part 1, Mr. Speaker, the part 1 was Mahamanomics. The part 2 is forcenomics. And it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, that under the economy that they complain about, the growth was 5.7%. And under the research economy, the growth is rather going down. You are projecting a 4-point-something growth. That is what you are doing. Mr. Speaker, the economy that they complain about left us with 4 months of import cover, and they are projecting under reset 3 months. Mr. Speaker, these are the very people who managed the economy up to 2016 and left us with some IPP debts. Today they are telling us that they are coming to renegotiate the very disaster they left us. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority
Mr.
Leader.
Speaker, we are not debating today. We are giving an indication.
Honorable Minority Leader, please be guided by Order 91.
Mr. Speaker, exactly so. Very, very guided by that. Mr. Speaker, I may read Order 91.
Your statement was that you are not debating today.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, we are not making comment on it. We are not going to make comment today. 91, Mr. Speaker, when he makes a statement, we are supposed to comment on it.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm saying that we are not going to engineer the comment today. Because, Mr. Speaker, they are not ready. We are ready, but we think they are not ready. So I'm only going to give an indication. Mr. Speaker, let the minority leader enjoy his bona fides for this minute. Just relax, Mr. Speaker.
I only want to draw your attention to the fact that you can only make comments.
Very well.
And the comments not more than 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, in commenting on this statement by the Finance Minister, it is clear to all of us in this chamber that today they decided to populate this chamber Mr. Speaker, they populated this chamber with their members only to come.
Honorable Minority Leader.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
The Minister for Finance did not talk about the population of the chamber. So that is not part of the statement of the Minister. Please.
Mr. Speaker, I noticed that when the Finance Minister came to present his statement, for the first time after the inauguration, the swearing in, the majority side was heavily populated. Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, we have witnessed what we can best describe as an Azan budget. Mr. Speaker, they are on much talked about for 24-hour economy. The president came here, they said it was not ready. The finance minister comes here, and again, the 24-hour economy policy is not included in his budget statement. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the youth of this country have been waiting for this 24-hour economy policy. The minister tells us the policy will be brought later. Hey, Ato, the policy will be brought later. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that all the jobs they promised the youth of this country was merely an Azam promise. Mr. Speaker, there is no inspiration from this budget. There is no hope in this budget. The repetition of the social intervention programs, Mr. Speaker, and then the minister complained that some contracts at the road sector had no commencement certificate. Go to the Chain Homes Road. There is a road construction on the Chain Homes. There is a new road being constructed to the 10 rooms with a new runabout. There is no commencement. We did a search. There is no commencement. There is no PP approval. You are doing, Mr. Speaker, you have started construction
minority leader. Honorable minority leader. Honorable minority leader. Honorable minority leader. Please, comments. I have given you a privilege. Don't abuse it.
Mr. Speaker, I shall conclude my comments by saying that whereas the Minister of Finance told us that there will be heavy sanctions against all those who go contrary to the PFM Act. Under his own administration, the Chain Homes Road is being constructed now. A new runabout is being constructed. Meanwhile, there is no commencement certificate. Meanwhile, there is no PP approval. Mr. Speaker, the sanctions must start with his own ministers. Mr. Speaker, we are ready for our comments. We know they are not ready, but if the minister is going to stay, Mr. Speaker, let us start the comments on this budget statement here and now, because this Azam budget, we cannot allow it to get onto the shelves for Ghanaians to think that there is any hope. Mr. Speaker, there is going to be comment to expose them. Thank you very much.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Minority Leader and I share something in common. We were both assemblymen. And when the Minister of Finance made the unprecedented announcement of a gargantuan sum of money for assemblymen, I saw the gleeful smile on his face. Unfortunately, it will not apply to ex-assemblymen. Mr. Speaker, this clearly is a budget of a government and a party that keeps its promises. Almost every promise that was made by John Dramani Mahama
is being fulfilled in less than 120 days. This budget is a budget for Makola women. This budget is a budget for assemblymen. This budget is a budget for girls. This budget, sanitary pads, students, girls, students, sanitary pads, there's sanitary pads. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the men on this side have started using sanitary pads. Because the sanitary pads is for the female students. That's why I said girls. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget for school children. They will now get the set of textbooks that they need to study. And peace of mind. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that delivers solid reforms. And this is a budget that is moving our growth from Galamsey growth to real growth. Mr. Speaker, by the time we finish implementing this budget, and by the time we finish implementing the three that will come after this one, Osunu Baya Nkitikiti. Osunu Baya Nkitikiti. Osunu Nkitikiti. To it, Mr. Speaker, the elephant will become small.
Majority Leader. Majority Leader, the Minister for Finance did not talk about Osunu. So, Osunu is not part of the statement. Please.
Speaker wants to roll with you. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I want to assure my friend, the minority leader, that the road at Chain Homes that is being done is not a new project. It's not a new project. So don't. There's something else you want me to add. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that gives hope to Ghanaians. This is a budget that will stabilize the economy. This is a budget that will create jobs for the youth of this country. Because this is a budget that will stabilize the economy and provide the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive and create jobs for the youth of this country. Mr. Speaker, fishermen, Okada riders, taxi drivers, students, and the energy sector is going to be salvaged by the implementation of this budget. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister of Finance
for making the statement and to assure my friend, the minority leader, that we are ready to debate their records and our records, and we are ready to demonstrate that the proposals contained in the statement of the Minister of Finance will indeed reset Ghana. Ghana is being reset. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, as I stated earlier on, this statement is not to be debated. You are to make comments on the statement. And to guide you, we are going to provide a few things for members because it's a transition. We used to debate budgets by making it a motion. Our standing orders from experience guided us to change it to a statement. And so last budget was a statement. And this one too is a statement. So it's a new field. And you need some guidance as to what to do during the course of that. If not, the Speaker will have a hell of trouble managing the House. So what we intend to do is to exhibit at the foyer budget statements since independence. You can go to the foyer and you get the budget statements since independence. We also have soft copies of handouts of budget statements with the pictures of the various ministers of finance. They will all be on display for you to go and either have a picture view or request for a copy so that you can, at your own leisure, go through it yourselves. There is a viewing session now of what has happened today, and that one too is available as a side attraction. You can go and have access and view it. We believe that this will assist you, and as we do that, we may focus on some of you, and we particularly want to project the excellent inputs that our ladies make on the floor as part of the affirmative action, the law that we passed. So we will give the ladies a priority or place in this feature. So with this, honorable members, I will proceed, since we've not yet done 5 hours, to put a question. And then you decide whether we should adjourn or not. So I'm going to put the question. Honorable members, I will allow the leaders to move the motion. So I will call on the minority leader. The minority leader wants to move the motion for adjournment.
Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I believe that since 7th January, this is the first time the majority is entering this in full. So we can do some 2 more hours of comment before we move the motion. Since 7th January, this is the first time. So, Mr. Speaker, let's give them the opportunity to comment, especially those who are not regular in this chamber. So, once we are done, we can then move the motion to adjourn the House. Mr. Speaker, that is my humble prayer. I don't know whether they would agree, but if they are in a hurry to go back home, Mr. Speaker, I would therefore move that this house be adjourned to enable them go back home.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what the Minority Leader says is a reflection of the constitution of this site. It's testimony to the fact that when they are needed, they will be here. When they are needed, they will be here.
Honorable members, honorable members.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, honorable members. Honorable members, please. Honorable members, the Winneba Choir sings I want to repeat. I want to repeat it. I'm sure you didn't hear what I was trying to say. The Winneba Choir sings better than you all. Majority Leader, you may now go on.
Mr. Speaker, it is obvious that the minority have withdrawn from participating in the involvement in the development of this country. They started it and then they got the response. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I second the motion for adjournment.
Honorable members, those in favor of the motion for adjournment, say aye. Those against the motion for adjournment, say no. Majority Leader, yes.
Mr. Speaker, there is rebellion on this side of the House because their leader moved the motion and they are rebelling against their leader. Leader, put your house in order.
Honorable
Watch
Majority
your
Leader.
back.
Please, that is democracy. They are entitled to disagree, even with their leader. But yes, minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have a very peaceful caucus. Mr. Speaker, I moved the motion for adjournment for the benefit of the majority. I said to enable them go home and rest. But we are ready to work. So they are right. Then he has seconded, meaning that his people are tired.
Honorable members, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. This House stands adjourned to tomorrow at 10 in the forenoon. The House is adjourned.
Much love.